Chapter 1020. The blood race was a race that was good at war. This was engraved deep in their blood. They were born with more knowledge than humans. Hence, after receiving news that the three blessed lands had joined forces to attack, Qianlu Blessed Land quickly responded. Yuling Feng constantly sent out blood race members to scout out the enemy's movements. News after news came back from the outside. By dawn, the three blessed lands' allied forces were only a few hundred miles away from Qianlu Blessed Land. Yuling Feng was also mobilizing his troops. Although his cultivation was not very high, he had the demeanor of a general. Under his command, Qianlu Blessed Land's arrangements were orderly. Thankfully, he had borrowed Dao 13's power a few days ago, and now he had gained some prestige in front of the Blood Tribe subordinates. After another 2 hours, the allied forces of the three blessed lands finally arrived at the city. Without any verbal communication, the allied forces of the three blessed lands immediately launched their attack. To the blood race, attacking each other was the most normal thing. There was no need to waste words, just fight. The allied forces of the three blessed lands were twice as strong as Qianlu Blessed Land. With the arrival of the three blessed lands, their morale soared. The allied forces closed in on Qianlu Blessed Land in a semicircle. Very quickly, the two sides clashed with blood arts. Streaks of mysterious blood arts weaved through the air, creating a spectacular scene. The blood race rarely used defensive arrays. This was mainly because their blood arts had a strong corrosive effect on defensive arrays. In such a battle, defensive arrays were not very useful and could be easily destroyed by the blood arts. The corrosive effect of the blood race's blood arts did not only affect arrays, but also spiritual weapons. Lu Yi had already verified this point in the Soaring Dragon realm. Hence, the blood race did not have any spiritual weapons. The battles between the blood race mainly relied on their ever-changing blood arts or close combat. The sharp nails of the blood race were their spiritual weapons that had been tempered thousands of times. The advantage in numbers allowed the allied forces of the three blessed lands to gain the upper hand. Qianlu Blessed Land's side soon suffered many casualties. Figures fell from the sky, their vitality dissipating. Dao Shisan had already single-handedly killed his way into the enemy group. At first, not many blood race members paid attention to him. He was only a blood slave, so naturally he was not worthy of their attention. Even though Dao 13 had recovered his true lake-stage cultivation, he was still not worthy of their attention. However, Dao Shisan soon attracted the attention of many true lake-stage blood breeds. The strength that Dao Shisan displayed was simply too terrifying. Even true lake-stage blood breeds would not be able to last more than 3 breaths if he got close to them. In just a few moments, Dao Shisan was surrounded by more than 10 true lake-stage vampires. Under normal circumstances, the blood race would not be a match for Dao Shisan even if they joined forces. After all, Dao Shisan was at the Divine Sea realm. However, the blood clan's blood arts were still extremely mysterious. The true lake-stage vampires used some unknown technique to create a river of blood in the blink of an eye. Dao 13 fell into the river of blood and disappeared without a trace. Even the vampires who controlled the river of blood also fell into it and fought with Dao 13. Lu Yi looked at this scene in surprise, but he didn't go to help. He could sense that Dao 13's aura was still very stable. He had hoped that Dao Shisan would help balance the forces of both sides, but with the current situation, he could no longer count on Dao Shisan. Without Dao 13's interference, the alliance of the three blessed lands became even stronger. The blood race's losses in Qianlu Blessed Land continued to increase. Lu Yi sighed. He could only take out the sword gourd from his storage space and infuse it with spiritual energy. In an instant, streaks of sword chi flew out from the sword gourd and reaped the lives of the enemies. Some of the blood race saw this scene and knew how powerful he was, so they wanted to stop him. However, even if the blood race managed to dodge the sword chi, they would still turn into corpses when they reached Lu Yi. The battle continued without end. Qianlu Blessed Land was gradually declining. The difference in their forces, especially the true lake-stage vampires, was huge. Under normal circumstances, Qianlu Blessed Land would not be able to defend itself. After 2 hours of fighting, Less than half of the blood race were left in Ganlu blessed land. Lu Yi felt that the time was about right. He took out a jade pendant and infused it with spiritual energy to activate the array he had set up earlier. When the buzzing sound rang out, the array discs he had buried earlier resonated endlessly. An invisible force enveloped the entire Ganlu blessed land. All of a sudden, the vampires in Qianlu blessed land who were forced to the ground felt an extremely wonderful feeling. Under the cover of the invisible force, they found that they could easily connect with their companions. Under this connection, they could even borrow the strength of their companions. Twin Qi Linked Branches Array. This was Lu Ye's preparation. Recently, other than cultivating, he had been studying the Twin Qi Linked Branches Array. He had also refined many array discs with this spirit pattern. With the array discs as nodes, he scattered them all over the blessed land and set up a Twin Qi Linked Branches Array. He could use this battle to test how powerful this array could be. This array itself did not have any killing power. It could only allow the blood race members in the array to connect and borrow each other's strength. So as long as the coordination was good enough, the blood race members of Ganlu blessed land would be able to display strength beyond their own. It would not be a problem to resist the attack of the three blessed lands. The key was cooperation. This was the first time the blood race members of Ganlu blessed land had experienced such a thing, so they naturally did not cooperate well. But soon, they understood the mystery of this array. They immediately gathered in groups of 3 to 5, led by the strongest blood race member, and followed by the others. For a time, the situation was barely stabilized. But it would not be so easy to win. Moreover, Lu Yi also noticed that the Twin Qi Linked Branches array he had set up had a huge drawback, which was that it could not distinguish between friend and foe. The array was dead, so it naturally could not distinguish between friend and foe, even with Lu Yi presiding over it. So when the enemy blood race members fell into the range of the array, they quickly understood the mystery of the Twin Qi Linked Branches array. Under the command of the 4 directions, more enemy blood race members fell into the array. Lu Yi frowned and turned his head to look at the blood river in the air. Dao 13 was trapped inside, so Ganlu blessed land had lost one of their top forces. If they wanted to win this battle, they had to get Dao 13 out. Or Lu Yi himself. However, he could not leave for too long. He had to protect the human women in the blessed land. Although he had already activated the protective array he had set up before, if he left for too long, the protective array could easily be eroded by the blood art. At that time, the fate of the women would be in danger. Just as Lu Yi decided to help Dao 13 out, he suddenly sensed something strange. He turned his head to look in a certain direction and saw a blood-red ray of light, like a rainbow piercing through the sun, rushing toward him. The light was dazzling, showing the fluctuations of a cloud river tier cultivation base. The blood-red ray of light rushed into the chaotic battlefield and plunged into the blood river in the sky. Lu Ye's expression became strange. This was because he felt a trace of a familiar aura in the blood-red ray of light. It reminded him of someone. But this was too strange, and he did not dare to believe it. Suddenly, a few screams came from the blood river. Not only were the screams shrill, but they were also filled with fear, as if they had encountered something extremely terrifying. Then, the blood river collapsed, and Dao 13's angry figure charged out. There was also a slender figure with blood-red hair that danced in the wind. At this moment, she stretched out her hand, and sharp nails that were 2 to 3 meters long extended from her 5 fingers. The nails were as sharp as swords, and they pierced through the chests of a few true Lake Stage Blood Tribe cultivators, lifting them into the air. The true Lake Stage Blood Tribe cultivators' auras were visibly weakening. Bright blood flowed out of their wounds, but it did not drip down. Instead, it was absorbed by an unknown force. The fingernails that pierced through their chests were as red as blood. The woman's eyes were as bright as rubies, but if one looked closely, there was a golden color in her ruby-like eyes. One of the true Lake Stage Blood Tribe cultivators was terrified. Although his cultivation base was higher than the woman in front of him, he did not have the strength to resist. He could only beg, "Spare me." The woman ignored him. The blood tribe cultivators who were pierced by her nails could be seen with the naked eye. The bodies of the true lake stage blood tribe cultivators began to dry up as if their blood had been sucked out. The sudden change caused both sides to stop what they were doing. They looked at the woman who suddenly charged into the battlefield in shock. When they saw the golden light in the woman's eyes, their expressions changed drastically. They were terrified, as if they had seen something extremely frightening. In the silent battlefield, only Dao 13 was venting his anger by killing a few blood tribe cultivators. However, those blood tribe cultivators did not show any signs of fighting back. In the air, the woman's gaze swept across the battlefield. When she saw Lu Yi, who was standing at the edge of the battlefield, she stopped and smiled. Lu Yi was shocked. Just now, when the woman came from afar, he felt that her aura was slightly familiar. It reminded him of someone who should have been dead. However, he did not expect it to be this person. Although her body shape had changed greatly, she looked exactly like a blood tribe cultivator. She had the bloodline of a blood tribe cultivator. She had the characteristics of a blood tribe cultivator. Lan Qiue. More than a month ago, Lan Qiue went missing beside the blood pool. Lu Yi went down to search for her, but he did not find anything. A human woman with only a spirit stream stage cultivation base would not have a good ending if she fell into the blood pool. Therefore, Lu Yi was almost certain that Lan Qiue had met with misfortune. During this period of time, he often regretted and blamed himself. Who would have thought that Lan Qiue would return in such a manner and with such an appearance after just a month? Chapter 1021. How did Lan Qiue become a member of the blood race? Did she originally have the bloodline of the blood race? That shouldn't be the case. The bloodline of the blood race was extremely powerful. The offspring of the blood race and the human race could only be the blood race. Therefore, in the blood refining world, no human would have the bloodline of the blood race. What surprised Lu Yi even more was that in just a month, Lan Qiue's cultivation had advanced from the spirit stream stage to the cloud river stage. Moreover, she killed the true lake stage blood race members like slaughtering chickens. A few true lake stage blood race members were pierced through by her long fingernails. They didn't have the strength or courage to resist. An indescribable aura spread out from Lan Qiue's body. Although it wasn't strong, it was purer than the average blood race member. Feeling this pure aura and combining it with what he saw in front of him, a title suddenly popped up in Lu Ye's mind. Holy Seed. In the blood refining world, the human race called the blood race the holy race. The blood race also called themselves that. However, within the blood race, there was an extremely special existence. That was the Holy Seed. The Holy Seed was a purer blood race member. The Holy Seed enjoyed an extremely high status within the blood race. The Holy Seed naturally suppressed the bloodline of ordinary blood race members. If in the eyes of the human race, ordinary blood race members were supreme, then in the eyes of the blood race, the Holy Seed was also supreme. Moreover, compared to ordinary blood race members, the Holy Seed had all sorts of inconceivable mysteries. Just like now, Lan Qiue's long fingernails pierced through the true lake stage blood race members. In a short period of time, the blood race members in the true lake stage were sucked dry, turning them into dried corpses. Lan Qiue casually swung her hand and the dried corpses fell to the ground. Her long fingernails retracted as if they had a life of their own. Her fingertips were blood red and almost dripped fresh blood. The blood race liked to drink the blood of humans, but they would never drink the blood of their own race. This was a tradition and also an instinctive self-protection. This was because drinking the blood of their own race would cause the power in their body to become impure. On the other hand, consuming blood crystals wouldn't cause this side effect. Therefore, the blood race would only consume blood crystals. However, the Holy Seed had no taboos. The blood of humans was useful to the Holy Seed, and the blood of the blood kindred was also useful to the Holy Seed. In the eyes of the Holy Seed, all living creatures in the blood refinement realm could be turned into nutrients for its growth. In other words, the blood kindred, who were high up in the blood refinement realm, were also food for the Holy Seed. They could even enter the blood pool to cultivate at any time and place without having to worry about their lives. Therefore, the cultivation of the holy seeds increased very quickly because they did not have to worry about their own cultivation resources. Lan Qiyu had an innate Tao body, and under the guidance of Lu Yi, she had broken through from the third-order spirit stream realm to the seventh order in just a month. Her progress could be described as fast, but compared to her current achievements, it was nothing. Because she was a holy seed, cultivating in the blood pool for a month had caused her strength to undergo an earth-shattering change. How did Lan Qiyu become a holy seed? Lu Yi couldn't figure it out, but he knew that it must have something to do with her entering the blood river. In the blood refinement realm, the birth of a holy seed was closely related to the blood river. Some blood kindred were holy seeds when they were hatched, while others were transformed into holy seeds when they entered the blood pool to cleanse their bloodline. Lu Yi didn't know what the mystery was. Even the blood kindred themselves weren't clear about it. Because the number of holy seeds was too small, even in this huge blood refinement realm, most of the blood kindred had only heard of the holy seed and had never seen a real holy seed in their lives. Therefore, when a holy seed suddenly broke into this battlefield, whether it was the blood kindred of thousand flowing blessed land or the allied forces of the three forces, all of them stopped what they were doing. Under the unique bloodline suppression of the holy seed, every blood kindred was terrified. The blood in their bodies was boiling, and they had the illusion that they were witnessing a god, making them want to worship. Umph! A soft sound came from Lan Qiyu's nose. This time, many of the blood kindred couldn't take it anymore. No matter if they were on the ground or in the air, they all knelt on one knee and performed the blood kindred's greeting. Every blood kindred lowered their once arrogant heads and even lowered their eyes. This was the bloodline suppression of the holy seed. Although Lan Qiyu's current strength wasn't much, and any true lake-stage blood kindred was stronger than her, under the natural bloodline suppression, no blood kindred dared to be presumptuous in front of her. Her figure flashed and landed in front of Lu Yi. She withdrew all of her aura and was about to speak, but Lu Yi raised a finger and gestured to her. Lan Qiyu understood and nodded her head. A fierce battle had ended because of Lan Qiyu's arrival. Many of the blood breeds were in a state of panic. Before Lan Qiyu spoke, none of them dared to stand up. They all half knelt there with their heads lowered. Lu Yi kept the sword gourd and walked towards the depths of the blessed land. Lan Qiyu followed closely behind. This wasn't the place to talk. Dao Shisan looked left and right for a while. Seeing that there were no opponents left, he was still annoyed. He was trapped in the river of blood just now. Now that he was free, he wanted to kill some blood kindred to vent his anger. In the end, he ended up like this. He felt suffocated and had nowhere to vent his anger. In the backyard of the blessed land, where Lu Yi lived, he stood still and turned to look at Lan Qiyu who followed him. There were many things that he wanted to understand, but the most important thing was to confirm Lan Qiyu's position. Now that she had become a holy seed, could she still remember that she was once a human? Lan Qiyu suddenly stretched out her hand and gestured above Lu Yi's head. She moved it to her chest and smiled mischievously. "Senior, you've become shorter." Lu Yi's heart was at ease. Lan Qiyu was still Lan Qiyu. However, becoming a holy seed had undoubtedly affected Lan Qiyu's temperament. In the past, Lan Qiyu would never do such a thing in front of him. The current Lan Qiyu was undoubtedly more confident than before. "It's you who became taller." Lu Yi looked at her speechlessly. The blood kindred had this disadvantage. They were generally taller than humans. This was why Lu Yi had never thought of using Thousand Face to disguise himself as a blood kindred. The external characteristics of the blood kindred were not something that Thousand Face could disguise. Hee hee. Lan Qiyu laughed happily. In the past, she had always looked up to Lu Yi. Now that the situation was reversed, she could not help but feel proud. "I went down to look for you, but I couldn't find you. I thought you were dead. I was swept away by the undercurrent of the blood pool. I don't know where I went. Of course, you couldn't find me. Senior, you don't have to blame yourself. I'm much better than before." "What happened?" Lu Yi asked. Lan Qiyu sank into her memories. After a while, she shook her head. "To be honest, I don't know what happened. At that time, I thought I was going to die, but somehow, I caught a ball of golden light. After that, I was in a daze. When I woke up, I was already like this. Golden light? It should be something from the blood river. But when I woke up, I searched for it, but I couldn't find any golden light. This was a strange thing. It seemed that the birth of the holy seed was directly related to the mysterious golden light in the blood river. It was just that they did not know what kind of existence the golden light was. I woke up 2 days ago. After leaving the blood river, I went to the bright moon cave abode. But there was no one there. I didn't know how to find you, so I wandered around. Then, I came to this area. What happened next was clear. The battle here was intense. Lan Qiue sensed something and came to check on the situation. In the end, she found Lu Ye's trace by accident. It was an unexpected gain. It's good that you're fine. The self-reproach that had been plaguing him for the past month had finally dissipated. It's just that you're now a holy seed. I'm afraid you can't restore your human body. This is good. I don't have to be on tenterhooks every day. Lan Qiue was open-minded. Although her appearance had changed greatly and did not conform to the original aesthetic of the human race, she had experienced too many hardships as a human. She did not mind changing her way of living. She softly snorted. They should be the ones on tenterhooks now. Senior brother, how do you plan to deal with those people outside? When she asked this, Lan Qiue was full of murderous intent. How do you want to deal with them? Lu Yi asked. Lan Qiue said, of course I want to kill them all. She did not hesitate to kill the blood breeds. Which of those blood breeds did not have a life under their hands? They saw the human race as livestock in captivity. Naturally, their deaths were not regrettable. Moreover, she could even get rid of the blood fetus that she gave birth to. When she followed Lu Yi, she had dealt with several blood fetus. She had a ruthless determination in her bones. As long as Lu Yi said the word good, she would definitely kill all the blood breeds outside without batting an eyelid. She did not even need to do it herself. She only needed to activate the power of her holy seed, and those blood breeds would not be able to do anything in front of her. Perhaps the blood breeds in the spirit ocean realm could resist the suppression of her bloodline. However, the blood breeds in the true lake realm did not have this ability. The sternness on his face disappeared and was replaced by a smile. But I know what senior brother wants to do, so killing them won't work. I'll just leave them alive. The sudden change in attitude saved the lives of many of the blood clan members outside. She looked at Lu Yi seriously with a sincere expression. Senior brother, I will help you in the future. Okay. Lu Yi nodded seriously. Then senior brother, please rest for a while. I will deal with the rest outside. Lan Qiue said and left in a flash. Even after she returned, the vampires outside were still half kneeling on the ground. Not a single one of them dared to act rashly. All of them were sweating profusely and had terrified expressions on their faces. No one knew what kind of fate awaited them. Lan Qiue's slender figure stood in midair. She looked down and said in a cold voice, "From now on, I will be the master of this place." Until this sentence was heard, the blood breeds felt as if they had been pardoned. They shouted, "We are willing to serve the Holy Master." Those with the holy seed, regardless of their cultivation level, were all holy masters in the blood refining world. This was a special honor and also the highest respect the blood breeds had for the holy seed. Chapter 1022. The blood race from both sides suffered many casualties in the war, but those who survived were all elites. Lan Qiyu came forward and reorganized them. No blood race dared to object, and they all obeyed her orders. To the blood race, being able to serve under the Saint Seed was something they dreamed of. The territory of Qian Lu Blessed Land expanded again, and the range of protection naturally increased. After Lan Qiyu took over, the first thing she announced was that from today onwards, the blood race under her command were not to harm the lives of humans in any way. Although Yu Lingfeng had announced this before, the effect was completely different. When Yu Lingfeng announced this matter, although the blood breeds agreed verbally, they didn't take it seriously and didn't take it seriously. Which blood race in this world did not consume blood? Some blood race even made up their minds to secretly consume blood. Anyway, as long as they were not caught on the spot, it would be fine. But this order came from the mouth of a saint seed, so no blood race dared to disobey. Every now and then, pregnant human women were sent to Jianghu blessed land to settle down. Lan Qiyu was in charge of this before. Now that her cultivation had increased greatly, it was easier for her to handle this. She also selected a few Gu human females and trained them as helpers. In this way, the pregnant mothers of the human race would be well taken care of. After they gave birth to the blood fetus, they would be sent to the nearby villages to settle down. Lu Yi did not need to worry about these trivial matters anymore. He only needed to cultivate. Time flew by and another month passed. In the backyard of Jianghu blessed land, in Lu Ye's bedroom, waves of qi swept through his body, and the surging spirit energy in his body was obviously pure. True Lake 8th Order. Thinking back to when he cultivated in the nameless sealed world with the help of the earth vein, he advanced from True Lake 5th Order to 7th Order in 2 months. But it had been more than 3 months since he came to the blood refining world, and his cultivation had only advanced by 1 level. Of course, in these 3 months, he only used 2 months to cultivate. In the first month, he had been restoring his original cultivation, so it did not count. His cultivation did not improve quickly, at least compared to before, it was slow. However, compared to other human cultivators, this cultivation efficiency was still terrifying. This was mainly due to the talent tree. With the help of the talent tree, Lu Yi could quickly absorb the energy of spirit stones and spirit pills for his own use. This was something that no other human cultivator could compare to. The spirit stones and spirit pills that he carried with him were almost used up. The only resources he had left for cultivation were some blood crystals. There were quite a few of them, but not too many either. The source of the blood crystals was Lan Qiyue's external expansion. During this month, she led the vampires in Thousand Flow Blessed Land to attack the nearby vampires' territories. Now, the territory under Thousand Flow Blessed Land's jurisdiction was twice as large as it was a month ago. All the humans under their jurisdiction were protected. Lan Qiyue's cultivation progress was extremely fast. Almost every time she returned from a battle, Lu Yi could feel that her cultivation had improved. Dao Shisan's cultivation had also improved. Of course, he was only slowly recovering his original cultivation. The current Dao 13 was already at the 9th Order True Lake realm. He was only 1 step away from the Spirit Sea realm. Dao 13's recovery was slower, but it couldn't be helped. After all, he couldn't absorb the energy of the blood crystals without restraint like Lu Yi. What he had been doing the most recently was eating non-stop. He ate the flesh and blood of the demonic beasts in this world. With the Spirit Sea realm physique, his appetite was naturally huge. He would eat 3 to 5 demonic beasts almost every day. Fortunately, there were specialized vampires in charge of capturing monster beasts for him, so Lu Yi didn't have to worry about anything. It would take some time. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months had passed. It had been more than 5 months since Lu Yi came to the blood refining world. Dao 13's cultivation had finally fully recovered. Lu Yi knew that it was time to leave. Over the past 5 months, he had been thinking about the purpose of the 9 continents Tianji sending him to this world, but he couldn't figure it out. The only thing he was sure of was that it had something to do with the humans of this world. Looking at the various sealed worlds that Lu Yi had experienced, everything he did was closely related to the fate and future of the humans in those sealed worlds. It was the same for the Myriad Beast realm, the Soaring Dragon realm, and the Peerless continent. He once wondered if the 9 continents wanted him to save the humans of the blood refining world. But if that was the case, then the 9 continents had overestimated him. In the end, he was only a true Lake Realm cultivator. Even with Dao 13 as his helper, he wouldn't be able to do much in a big world like the blood refining world. Even with Lan Qiyue, it wouldn't be enough. He couldn't bear the heavy responsibility of saving the humans of the blood refining world unless he had the ability to destroy all the vampires in this world. Since the 9 continents didn't want him to save the humans of the blood refining world, then why did the 9 continents send him here? Lu Yi had to find the answer, so he had to leave Thousand Flows Blessed Land. He wouldn't be able to find any clues if he stayed here. The reason why he waited until today was to wait for Dao 13 to recover his cultivation. Tao 13 was the greatest helper the 9 continents had given him. Only when Tao 13 fully recovered his cultivation could he proceed with the next step of his plan. As for Lan Qiue, if he kept her here, she would be able to protect more humans. Therefore, he couldn't bring Lan Qiue away. Otherwise, it would be much safer to bring a saint seed of the vampires around the blood-refining world. With a plan in mind, Lu Yi waited silently. Since he was going to leave, he naturally had to bid farewell to Lan Qiue. One day later, Lan Qiue, who had been fighting outside, returned. The first thing she did was to go to Lu Ye's bedroom to report the situation of the battle. She told Lu Yi how many blood breeds had died in this trip. Her excitement was beyond words. The dead vampires naturally included her subordinates. However, she was the same as Lu Yi. She didn't feel sorry for the deaths of her subordinates. To her, every dead vampire was an additional blood crystal. Of course, in order to preserve the strength of her subordinates, she couldn't kill too many vampires. Therefore, every time she went on an expedition, she would control the number of vampires' casualties. When the time was right, she would activate her Saint Seed bloodline and turn the tide. Senior apprentice brother, these are the blood crystals we obtained during this trip. There are a few hundred of them. Lan Qiue said as she handed a storage bag to Lu Yi. She naturally knew that Lu Yi could use the blood crystals to cultivate. However, she didn't know why Lu Yi had such a strange ability and never asked. You can keep them for yourself. There's no need to give them to me. Lu Yi declined. It's too easy for me to cultivate. I don't need the blood crystals. Therefore, it's more appropriate for senior apprentice brother to use these things. It was indeed easy for her to cultivate. The vampires she killed during the expedition were all turned into nutrients for her growth. Moreover, she could enter the blood river any time to improve herself. Then I'll take them. Lu Yi took the storage bag. He didn't have many cultivation resources left. Although a few hundred blood crystals weren't much, they could replenish some. After a pause, he said, "Junior apprentice sister, I have something to tell you." Lan Qiue was startled. Then her expression changed. She quickly stood up. "I'm not listening. Senior apprentice brother, don't say it." "I haven't said what it is." Lu Yi was speechless. "I'm not listening." Lan Qiue was a little annoyed. She stomped her foot and turned into a blood light that shot into the sky. In a flash, she disappeared. She was very smart. It was obvious that she realized something. Looking at the direction she left, Lu Yi was speechless. At the side, Dao Shisan was eating a large piece of beast meat. His mouth was full of oil and his stomach was bulging. He was carefree. Suddenly, a scream came from the front yard. It was unknown which vampires were unlucky enough to meet Lan Qiue, who was in a bad mood. They were killed by her. The next day, Lu Yi was meditating and cultivating when he heard footsteps. He opened his eyes and saw that it was Lan Qiue. Lu Yi smiled at her and gestured for her to sit down. Lan Qiue turned her head and stood there without saying a word. After a while, she said, "Senior apprentice brother, are you leaving?" Lu Yi nodded slightly. "Yes." Lan Qiue turned to look at him. There was a hint of pleading in her eyes. "Can you not leave? If you leave, I'll be the only one here. There are some things that I have to go out and take a look." "Then go." Lan Qiue was annoyed. "Senior apprentice brother, if you leave today, I'll kill all the humans in my territory tomorrow. I'll go and kill those pregnant mothers right now." Lu Yi laughed. "Don't say things out of anger." Lan Qiue glared at him. "I can do it. Maybe you can do it, but you're a human after all. You were once one of those pregnant mothers. If you really do it, you'll suffer in the future." "So what?" Lan Qiue looked at him stubbornly. However, she only looked at Lu Yi for 3 breaths before averting her gaze. "Come and sit down." Lu Yi waved his hand. Lan Qiue moved and sat in front of him. After a while, she said, "Senior apprentice brother, take me with you. I'm a holy seed. I can protect you by your side." Lu Yi sighed. "If you leave, Qianlu blessed land will be in chaos. Those humans, what does their life and death have to do with me?" Lan Qiue suddenly became agitated. "I was supposed to die. Senior apprentice brother saved me, taught me cultivation, and brought me to the blood pool. If it weren't for Senior Apprentice Brother, there would be no Lan Qiue in this world. Senior Apprentice Brother, don't forget that I was originally an ordinary human. I don't want to be a holy seed, nor do I want to be a blessed land. I don't ask for anything else. I just want to follow Senior Apprentice Brother. You can just treat me as a servant girl. Lu Yi was silent. He suddenly realized that he had taken things for granted. Before becoming a holy seed, Lan Qiue was just a human girl who was bullied by the blood breeds. It was just that her current identity as a holy seed made Lu Yi forget the Lan Qiue of the past. If I let the holy seed be a servant girl for me, my E-finger will rise. Lu Yi said slowly. If it's only 5, then come with me. Lan Qiue looked at Lu Yi in surprise. Really? Lu Yi nodded. Of course. But if we all leave, what will happen to the humans in the blessed land? I'll try my best to make arrangements. Perhaps there was no way to maintain the current situation in the blessed land for too long, but he could only do his best. Chapter 1023. Lan Qiue smiled. Then I won't go. She was still making a fuss about wanting to go with him. Why didn't she go after agreeing to it? I really won't go. Lan Qiue was still smiling. Senior Apprentice Brother is right. I was once one of those pregnant mothers and suffered a lot. Now that I have the ability to change some things, I can't sit back and do nothing. I'll stay here and continue to expand my territory. I'll protect as many humans as I can. Lu Yi was slightly enlightened. Only then did he realize something. Lan Qiue didn't have to go with Bai Ji. She just wanted him to declare that he was willing to take her with him. Once this was satisfied, it didn't matter whether she went with him or not. But Senior Apprentice Brother, wait for me for 3 days. No, 5 days. You can leave after 5 days. Lan Qiue said. She was also here. Okay. Lu Yi nodded. He didn't ask what she wanted to do. Lan Qiue left quickly. Lu Yi sensed that she had left Ganlu blessed land. He didn't know where she was going. 5 days passed quickly. Lan Qiue returned as promised. Looking at her travel-worn appearance, it was obvious that she had rushed a long way. Senior Apprentice Brother. Lan Qiue took out something from her chest and opened it in front of Lu Yi. This is a rough map of this world. Lu Yi's eyes lit up. He had thought of getting a map of this world, but this kind of thing was hard to come by. He had no way to get it. He didn't know where Lan Qiue found it. Wu Bai's trip this time was probably related to this. He lowered his head to look at the map. He saw a block pattern in the shape of a drop. It was similar to the one he saw when he entered this world. Lan Qiue pointed at the top of the map. This is where we are. Senior Apprentice Brother, when you leave here, remember to go south. Why go south? Lu Yi didn't understand. Lan Qiue pursed her red lips. She hesitated for a moment. Finally, she said, because there's a human force in the south. They have the power to fight against the blood race. Senior Apprentice Brother, you can only be safe there. Lu Yi's heart was slightly red. Are you sure? Lan Qiue said seriously, I heard about this from the blood breeds more than a month ago. She smiled mischievously, but the blood breeds who told me about this have already been killed by me. She obviously didn't want Lu Yi to know about these things, lest Lu Yi get any ideas. She had long felt that it was impossible for Lu Yi to stay here forever. So when Lu Yi said that he had something to tell her a few days ago, she turned around. She tried to persuade him to stay but to no avail, hence she knew that Lu Yi had left. Since that was the case, there was no need to continue concealing the information about Steward. At the very least, she could give Lu Yi a clear goal and direction, so that he wouldn't have to run around aimlessly in the blood-refining world. Lu Yi stared at the map in front of him in a daze, his mood surging. This was the best news he had heard since coming to the blood-refining world 5 months ago. He had seen too much of the suffering of the human race during this period of time. He had thought that the humans of the blood realm were living in an abyss of suffering and that this realm was completely ruled by the vampires. Not until then did he realize that there was still a new flame of humanity in the darkness. The 5 months of confusion suddenly disappeared at this moment. Where is it? Lu Yi asked. Lan Qiue's slender red finger moved downwards. Senior brother is heading south, crossing the sky upholding peak and the royal line. These two peaks are the two highest pressures in the blood refining world. You still have to continue heading south. After a while, Lan Qiue's finger pointed to a position on the map. Spirit Net Sea, that human race power is in the Spirit Gate Sea. Lu Ye's gaze swept past the sky upholding peak and Jade Pillar Peak before looking at the Spirit Gate Sea. He couldn't help but have a strange feeling. The shape of the entire blood refining world. Why does it look like something? The thought flashed past, but he didn't think too much about it. The vampires in the south and the humans in the Spirit Gate Sea are at war all year round. Hence, senior brother must be careful when you go there. I understand. Lu Yi nodded slightly and reached out to pick up the map. He stared at Xiangahai and stretched out his hand slightly. Suddenly, he raised his head and looked at Lan Qiue. What are you doing? Lan Qiue had used her finger to make a cut on her Lulu's deer. The cut moved, but the blood didn't flow out. What was strange was that her blood wasn't golden. Lan Qiue stretched out her finger and pulled at the wound. Soon, a round jade the size of a copper coin was taken out. The jade's body was shining with golden light. It was as if it had drunk Lan Qiue's sacred blood. After the round jade was taken out, the flesh on Lan Qiue's arm moved. It healed very quickly. This was the uniqueness of the vampires. They were proficient in all kinds of blood arts. Hence, ordinary flesh wounds were nothing to them. They could recover very quickly. Not to mention, Lan Qiue was a sacred seed. Her recovery ability was even stronger than ordinary vampires. After taking out the round jade, Lan Qiue's aura had obviously weakened by a lot. I prepared this 2 months ago. I thought that senior brother would be able to stay for a while longer. Now that senior brother is leaving, I can only take it out. This sacred blood jade contains my aura. It can deter some ordinary vampires. However, because it is limited by my cultivation, its deterrence effect on vampires above the Spirit Sea realm is greatly reduced. Senior brother, please use it regularly. As she said this, she handed the sacred blood jade that was nourished by her sacred blood to Lu Yi. Lu Yi only felt that his hand was heavy. Something prepared 2 months ago. Obviously, Lan Qiue had always been mentally prepared that Lu Yi would leave at any time. Otherwise, she would not have prepared such a thing for him. This also showed that Lan Qiue had never planned to leave with him. She knew that Lu Yi was worried about her. Hence, she had to stay and protect the Pando humans in the area under her jurisdiction as a sacred seed. Senior brother, you must take care of yourself, Lan Qiue finally exhorted. Lu Yi took the lead. 2 hours later, in the sky above Qianlu Blessed Land, Lan Qiue stood in midair and watched Lu Yi leave. Since she had decided to leave, she would not drag it on. There was no water in the world that was not green. He vaguely felt that the sleepiness was something that happened a few months ago. He could find the answer there. Other than Dao Shisan, only Yu Lingfeng followed him on this trip. In an environment like the blood refining world, there were many inconveniences for the two of them to enter the clan alone. Bringing Yu Lingfeng along would be a cover. If they encountered other vampires, they would only subconsciously think that they were Yu Lingfeng's blood slaves. But in reality, who was the slave and who was the master, each person's heart was clear. Lu Yi took out the spirit boat and had Dao Shisan drive it. When they passed by the vicinity of Tsangnan village, Lu Yi thought for a moment and let Dao Shisan take a detour. They stopped outside Tsangnan village for a moment. Under the perception of his divine telekinesis, the villagers of Tsangnan village were undoubtedly more smiling than when he first arrived a few months ago. They no longer had that kind of brilliant expression. In the past few months, ever since Zhang Julai in the Bright Moon Cave abode announced that they would no longer consume blood, no more humans were harmed by the vampires. Now, Tsangnan village only needed to contribute a certain amount of blood within a certain period of time. This was something that couldn't be helped. The blood race had a deep-rooted desire for blood. Not allowing them to drink living blood was already an extreme measure. If they didn't even allow them to drink dead blood, who knew what kind of chaos would ensue? Even Lan Qiue, the sacred seed, did not think of changing this point. The main thing was that it could not be changed. After observing for a moment outside Songnan village, the group set off again. Dao Shisan drove the spirit boat. Its speed was still very fast. In just one day, they were out of Qianlu Blessed Land's jurisdiction. This time, Lu Yi was not in a hurry to go south. After all, the journey was long and there was no point in being anxious. He was currently in the northern region of the blood-refining realm. The Godly Gate Sea was in the southern region of the blood-refining realm. If he wanted to reach the Godly Gate Sea, it was equivalent to crossing over half of the blood-refining realm's territory. Even with Dao Shisan driving the spirit boat, it was not something that could be done in a few days. Lu Yi estimated that this journey would take at least a few months. Moreover, he was not just rushing. Along the way, he would occasionally encounter vampires. He would casually kill them. For the current Lu Yi, the blood crystals of the vampires were the only cultivation resources that he could obtain. Naturally, he would not let them go. Previously, when he was in Qianlu Blessed Land, he wanted to find an earth vein to cultivate. After all, if he could find an earth vein where spiritual energy gathered, his cultivation level would increase rapidly. However, after searching for a long time, he did not find anything. In the end, he came to a helpless conclusion. The blood river was the earth vein of the blood-refining realm. Although it could be found everywhere, it could not be refined at will. It was a pity. 5 days after leaving Qianlu Blessed Land's jurisdiction, the group arrived at another blessed land. Yu Lingfeng took the lead. Lu Yi and Dao Shisan followed closely behind, pretending to be blood slaves. Before they got close to the blessed land, a patrolling vampires stopped them and asked, "Where are you from? What are you doing here?" Yu Lingfeng followed Lu Ye's instructions and said, "We have no home to return to. We are here to seek refuge." The vampires looked at Yu Lingfeng suspiciously. Seeing that he did not seem to be faking it, the vampires said, "Wait here." They turned around and went in to report. After a while, vampires with a higher cultivation level came out to greet them. After exchanging a few words with Yu Lingfeng, they happily let him in. After a while, in the meeting hall of this blessed land, the true Lake Realm vampires with some status gathered together and sat on the left and right sides. The foundation of this blessed land was not bad. It was much stronger than the Qianlu Blessed Land. The one sitting at the head of the table was naturally the Blessed Land's lord. The vampires frequently fought with each other. There were always some defeated vampires who had nowhere to go and could only choose to seek refuge. Therefore, the vampires present did not doubt Yu Lingfeng's words at all. They all thought that he was really here to seek refuge. Moreover, Yu Lingfeng showed that he was a true Lake Realm 8th Order cultivator. They could not underestimate him. If there was one more vampires in the Blessed Land, their foundation would increase. Basically, the vampires here welcomed Yu Lingfeng's arrival. Chapter 1024. However, after a short while, the hall was filled with corpses and blood. Lu Yi sat on the throne of the Blessed Land's lord, playing with the sacred blood jade that Lan Qiue gave him before he left. Yu Lingfeng stood respectfully at the side, trembling. With Lu Yi and Dao Shisan's abilities, it wouldn't be difficult to kill all the bloodlights here, but it definitely wouldn't be this easy. After all, they were all true Lake Stage blood race cultivators. If their lives were in danger, they would definitely put up a fight. However, it was different with the sacred blood jade suppression. When Lu Yi took out the sacred blood jade, all the blood race cultivators present stiffened as if they were struck by lightning. Lu Yi and Dao Shisan attacked violently, slaughtering all the blood race cultivators present. The Blessed Land's lord was still alive, but he was captured by Dao Shisan and knelt in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand and touched the Blessed Land's forehead, urging him with his spiritual will. After a while, Dao Shisan let go of the other party and Lu Yi put away the holy blood jade. The Blessed Lord of the Blood Clan, who had been planted with the soul control spell, stood up respectfully. Lu Yi gave a few simple instructions before leaving with Dao Shisan and Yu Lingfeng. He didn't kill the Blessed Land's lord out of mercy, but because he needed him to live on and continue to rule this blessed land. He wanted to provide as much protection as possible for the humans in this blessed land. Along the way, Lu Yi would kill a group of blood race cultivators for blood crystals every time he passed by a blessed land. He would leave the blessed land's lord alive and plant the soul manipulation divine rune. In fact, if possible, Lu Yi would like to plant the soul manipulation divine rune in the minds of blood race cultivators of the divine ocean stage. In the blood refining world, the places where blood race cultivators gathered were divided into 3 levels. The lowest level was the abode, guarded by blood race cultivators of the Cloud River stage. The next level was the grotto heaven, guarded by blood race cultivators of the divine ocean stage. The abode's lord was called the abode's lord, the blessed land's lord was the blessed land's lord, and the grotto heaven's lord was the heavenly venerate. If one could control a heavenly venerate, it would be very effective. It wasn't something a mere blessed land's lord could compare to. However, even with the sacred blood jade in hand, Lu Yi didn't dare to enter a grotto heaven with a blood clan member at the divine sea realm. There were too many variables. A blood clan member at the divine sea realm was not easy to control. He had been lucky to successfully plant the soul control spell in Dao Shursan's divine soul. Dao Shursan had fainted, and Mo Wuji had used the deity vanquishing sword to break Dao Shursan's divine soul defense. Thus, even though Lu Yi knew the benefits of controlling a heavenly venerable level blood tribe member, he didn't act rashly. Continuing south, Lu Yi planted the soul manipulation divine runes in almost every blessed land he passed, and they all received his orders. Xingjin reached the peak of a mountain. The cold wind was biting, penetrating one's bones. As far as the eye could see, clouds and mist were rising, and waves of smoke were faintly discernible, as if they were no longer in the mortal world. Towering Sky Peak was one of the 2 tallest mountain peaks in the blood-refining realm. It was marked on the map that Lan Qiue gave to Lu Yi. The other mountain peak was Jade Pillar Peak. It was said that these 2 mountains were of the same height, and if one looked down from the sky, one would see that they were both semicircular in shape, symmetrical on the left and right sides of the blood-refining realm. It was really strange. Lu Yi didn't know whether they were of the same height or symmetrical on the left and right sides, and he didn't have the mood to investigate. After all, he couldn't go to Jade Pillar Peak to make a comparison. He was just passing by. It had been almost 2 months since they set off from Gan Lu Blessed Land. According to the map, they had only covered 30% of the journey. In other words, they still had to walk for at least 4 months to reach the Shenke Sea. The road ahead was really long. They didn't stay here for long. Soon they set off again. They passed towering Sky Peak and entered the vast Cloud Radish Plain. From the map, the Cloud Radish Plain was extremely large, occupying almost half of the blood-refining realm's territory. The Shenke Sea was located in the middle of the Cloud Radish Plain. It was an inland sea. A few days later, in a blessed land where the blood race gathered, many corpses of the blood race were strewn across the hall. Yu Lingfeng silently collected the blood crystals of the dead blood race. Lu Yi sat on the throne of a blessing lord, playing with the sacred blood jade in his hand. The blessing lord knelt in front of him, listening to Lu Ye's instructions and nodding his head repeatedly. They had done this so many times that the 3 of them were familiar with it. Almost every blessed land they went to would have a similar scene. After giving his instructions, Lu Yi got up and was about to leave. Unexpectedly, the blessing lord who had been implanted with the soul manipulation divine rune suddenly said, "Sacred envoy, please wait." He didn't know Lu Ye's background, but when he saw the round jade with the sacred blood seed in Lu Ye's hand, he thought that Lu Yi was a subordinate of a sacred seed, so he subconsciously called him Sacred Envoy. As for why the Sacred Venerable chose a human as his sacred envoy, it wasn't something he needed to consider. "What is it?" Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at him. The blood race member said, "Sacred Envoy, may I ask if the Sacred Venerable is willing to subdue more blessing lords?" Lu Yi narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" The blood race member said, "It's like this. Not long ago, the blessing lord of the Yellow Dome blessed land reached the divine sea level, so he invited all the blessing lords to gather and prepare to hold a blood feast ceremony. When the time comes, many blessing lords will come to support." Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. In the past 2 months, he had used the soul manipulation divine rune to enslave many blood race members, but the efficiency was still low. However, this was just something he did along the way, so he didn't demand anything. Now that there was an opportunity for so many blessing lords to gather, he could go and join in the fun. The reason that he hadn't rashly gone looking for trouble with an Empyrean-level blood race was because there were far too many uncertainties. Before his cultivation truly stepped into the Divine Sea realm, rashly attacking a Divine Sea realm blood race was far too risky. However, if it was just a blood race member who had just reached the Divine Sea level, then it was completely possible to take him down. Not to mention that many blessing lords would come to support him. It could be said that what he gained from participating in this blood-feeding ceremony might be more than what he had gained in the past 2 months. Spending a few days to protect more humans was totally worth it. "You were invited?" Lu Yi asked. The blood race member said, "The one in Remnant Sky Blessed Land has some friendship with me." "Very good." Lu Yi nodded in satisfaction. "What's your name?" The blood race member hurriedly replied, "Jinda. Because I have a friendship with the one in Huangqiong Blessed Land." Therefore, Jinda originally planned to set off today, but he didn't expect Lu Yi to come to him. As a result, almost all of his true Lake Realm subordinates were dead, and he was the only one left. There was nothing to prepare. After a while, Jinda led Lu Yi and the others away. Huangqiong Blessed Land wasn't too far from here, but it wasn't close either. It was a day's journey. On the second day, the group arrived at Huangqiong Blessed Land. Looking from afar, Huangqiong Blessed Land was full of jubilation. Many blood race members were shuttling back and forth in the Blessed Land, setting up all kinds of things for the ceremony. Because it wasn't the day of the ceremony yet, the guests hadn't arrived yet. When Jinda led Lu Yi and the others down, a blood race member who recognized him immediately came up to greet him with a smile. "Brother Jinda, why are you here so early? There are still 2 days before the ceremony." Jinda said, "Brother, when ascending to the divine ocean realm is a joyous occasion. How can I be late? I also want to see if there's anything I can help with." The master of Huangqiong Blessed Land was called Wen Yufeng, and he was younger than Jinda. The blood race member smiled. "Brother Jinda is considerate," he then reminded, "but Brother Jinda should call him Heavenly Venerable." Jinda was startled, and then he laughed. Yes, Heavenly Venerable One. Although they have a friendship, the Divine Ocean Realm and the True Lake Realm have different statuses. It would be inappropriate to call him Brother Wen now. While the 2 blood race members were talking, Lu Ye's gaze fell on the many panic-stricken humans locked up in prison. Without exception, all of them had cultivation, and they were all human girls around 16 or 17 years old. There were quite a few of them, about 300 to 400. It was obvious that Huangqiong Blessed Land had put in a lot of effort to collect so many young girls with cultivation. These girls should be the food prepared for the blood feast ceremony. Once the ceremony started, the blood race members who came to congratulate Huangqiong would enjoy them to their heart's content. Lu Yi was secretly glad that Jinda had mentioned it before. Otherwise, he would have missed the ceremony, and these girls would have to face an extremely tragic fate. At the same time, he felt a little sad. What he could see and intervene in was something he could do. In this vast blood refinement realm, how many things could he not see and control? These 2 humans are. The blood race member looked at Lu Yi and Dao Shisan curiously. Dao Shisan, in particular, had a sturdy figure and abundant blood essence, which attracted the blood race's attention the most. Back then, Sun Miaozhu had taken a liking to him. The 2 blood slaves that he brought as gifts had high cultivations. The blood race member understood and immediately smiled. Brother Jinda is considerate. If Heavenly Venerable knew, he would be happy. Where is Heavenly Venerable? Jinda asked. I will send them to Heavenly Venerable now. He is meditating in his bedroom, preparing for the ceremony in 2 days. The blood race member gestured with his hand. Brother Jinda, follow me. Logically speaking, it was not good to disturb Heavenly Venerable at this time. However, since Jinda wanted to send gifts, he could not stop him. Therefore, he followed the blood race member and headed to the backyard of the Blessed Land. Soon, They arrived in front of a bedroom. The blood race member went in to report. After getting Wen Yufeng's permission, he came out and said, "Heavenly Venerable invites you in." "Thank you." Jin De nodded slightly and led Lu Yi and Dao Shisan into the bedroom. They walked in. At first glance, they saw a blood race member sitting cross-legged. It was the master of Huang Qiong Blessed Land, Wen Yufeng. Now that he had reached the Divine Sea Realm, Huang Qiong Blessed Land would also rise and become a Huang Qiong Grotto Heaven. As for whether Huang Qiong Blessed Land could stand firm, it would depend on Wen Yufeng's ability. This was also the reason why he held the blood feast ceremony. He wanted to use this ceremony to win the hearts of the masters of the blessed lands nearby. Otherwise, he would not have spent so much effort to prepare so many high-quality blood feasts. "Greetings, Heavenly Venerable." Jin De stepped forward and bowed. Wen Yufeng opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Brother Jin De, there is no need to be so polite. You and I have known each other for many years. Although I reached the Divine Sea Realm earlier than you, there will be a day when you will reach the same level." Chapter 1025. Jin De immediately pretended to be touched. "I'm moved to tears, Heavenly Master. The past is the past, and the future is the future. If you have any orders in the future, Jin De will obey." He was expressing his stance. Wen Yufeng was very satisfied with his attitude. He glanced at Lu Yi and Dao Shisan behind him. "I heard you prepared these for me?" Jin De nodded and stepped to the side. "These two blood thralls have high cultivation bases. I've carefully selected them." "Oh." Wen Yufeng smiled faintly, but he didn't mind. After all, in his opinion, no matter how Jin De chose, he wouldn't be able to find any good food. However, Dao Shisan's abundant blood qi piqued his interest. "Since you said so, their cultivation must not be too low. What are their cultivation levels?" Jin De said, "The Heavenly Master wants to see your cultivations. Why don't you show them?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Yi and Dao Shisan moved. The pressure of the Divine Sea Realm spread out, and Wen Yufeng's smile froze. In his opinion, the two blood slaves in front of him were at least at the Cloud River Realm. If that was the case, it would be a great gift. However, he didn't expect Dao Shisan to be at the Divine Sea Realm. Moreover, the pressure was so strong that it made his heart palpitate. In an instant, he couldn't even breathe properly. Before he could react, Dao Shisan's divine consciousness rushed out. Wen Yufeng felt as if he had been hit by an invisible sledgehammer. His head jerked back, and a pained expression appeared on his face. At the same time, Lu Yi took out the holy blood jade. Wen Yufeng, who instinctively wanted to resist, was even more frightened. He felt his blood being suppressed, and the power he hurriedly channeled was instantly dispersed. However, when Lan Qiyu gave the holy blood jade to Lu Yi, she told him that due to her limited cultivation, the holy blood jade's power might not be much of a deterrent to blood clan members at the Divine Sea Realm. It seemed that this was indeed the case. The moment the holy blood jade appeared, it did cause a momentary suppression on Wen Yufeng, but he quickly broke free. However, Dao 13 took advantage of this brief moment to step forward and clamp down on Wen Yufeng's mouth to prevent him from screaming. His other hand reached out and grabbed Wen Yufeng's shoulder, lifted him up high, and smashed him onto the ground. With a loud bang, the entire palace shook. Even though Wen Yufeng had reached the Divine Sea Realm, he was still knocked dizzy. This was not the end. Dao Shisan's divine will had been surging all this time. It turned into an invisible force that slammed into Wen Yufeng's divine soul, making him dizzy and his divine soul tremble. Wen Yufeng's body bounced off the ground. Dao 13 was kneeling on top of him, preventing him from moving. Lu Yi quickly stepped forward and placed a finger on Wen Yufeng's forehead, his divine sense surging. A moment later, Lu Yi gave Dao 13 a look of exhaustion. Only then did Dao 13 release Wen Yufeng. Wen Yufeng got up in a sorry state. His figure staggered as he shook his head. It was obvious that he hadn't recovered from the earlier incident. Lu Yi also shook her head gently. It was still a bit difficult. For him, killing Wen Yufeng was easy. Dao 13's cultivation was much higher than Wen Yufeng's. Even 10 Wen Yufeng's wouldn't be a match for him. However, enslaving Wen Yufeng with soul manipulation wasn't so easy. The main reason was that Wen Yufeng resisted consciously. Therefore, even with Tao 13's divine will attacking Wen Yufeng, he had succeeded. Lu Yi was even more relieved that Tao 13 had fallen into a coma when he entered the blood-refining realm with him. Moreover, he had the deity vanquishing sword that targeted divine souls. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to plant soul manipulation on Tao 13. When Yufeng slowly came back to his senses, he looked at Lu Yi, not knowing how to address him. When Yufeng's divine soul had been planted with the soul manipulation divine rune. Naturally, he could feel Lu Ye's absolute control over him. Jinda introduced, "This is Lord's sacred emissary." When Yufeng hurriedly bowed. "Greetings, sacred emissary." Lu Yi nodded slightly. At this moment, the Blood Clan member who had led Jinda here hurriedly came over. He asked in surprise, "What happened, Sky Sovereign?" Although the incident just now was brief, there were still fluctuations of battle. This Blood Clan member had sensed the abnormality and came to investigate the situation. When Yufeng waved his hand, "It's nothing. You may leave." The Blood Clan member nodded and retreated with some suspicion. "I'll be staying here for the next 2 days. If there are any guests, bring them here," Lu Yi instructed. "Yes. Also, you are not allowed to harm the humans here. As for those human women outside, where did you capture them from? Once this matter is over, send them back." "Yes," when Yufeng replied again. The blood-feeding ceremony was extraordinarily lively. When Yufeng had already sent out invitations, so guests kept coming as the ceremony approached. Those who came to congratulate him were led to Wen Yufeng's bedroom and left after a while. 2 days later, there were about 30 blessed masters who had arrived. On the day of the ceremony, the guests gradually decreased. Those who should have come had already arrived. When Yufeng appeared and enjoyed the festivities with the guests. However, what puzzled the Blood Clan members of the Yellow Dome Blessed Land was that their Sky Sovereign hadn't ordered them to prepare any food. When they asked for instructions, they were even fiercely reprimanded by the Sky Sovereign, telling them not to harm the food without his orders. Although the Blood Clan members of the Yellow Dome Blessed Land didn't know what was going on, they didn't dare to disobey the Sky Sovereign's orders. All the way until the end of the ceremony, the captured blood food was still safe and sound. During the ceremony, when Yufeng even announced that in the future, the vampires were not allowed to harm the human race at will, which attracted the approval of many people who came to congratulate him. The Blood Clan members of the Yellow Dome Blessed Land were at a loss. They couldn't understand what was going on at this moment. Lu Yi had already brought Dao Shi-san and Yu Lingfeng thousands of kilometers away. This trip to the blood-feeding ceremony had allowed him to enslave a divine sea realm heavenly venerable and 30 true lake realm guests. The harvest was even greater than the previous 2 months. With his orders, the humans would be able to live in a safe environment in the Blood Clan's territories in the future. But in the end, this was only a temporary solution. In the short term, the Blood Clan's territories would be safe, but no one could guarantee that they would live forever. Once they died, no one would be able to carry out Lu Ye's orders. Moreover, the Blood Clan members under him might not be willing to obey his orders. If they were to act secretly, the guests might not know. They continued south. Recently, Lu Ye's cultivation progress had been very slow, mainly because of the lack of cultivation resources. Although he had collected some blood crystals, they weren't enough for him to break through to the 9th Order True Lake Realm. The journey was relatively smooth. In the blink of an eye, more than 2 months had passed. Almost 70% of the journey south had been completed. Only 30% was left before they reached the Divine Gate Sea. In a Blood Clan blessed land, Lu Yi, Dao Shi-san, and Yu Lingfeng stopped to rest. Along the way, the group would occasionally rest for a while. After all, they were very tired after traveling for such a long time. While they were resting, a voice full of energy suddenly sounded, "Where is the guest of this blessed land?" Lu Yi raised his brows slightly and scanned with his divine sense. He noticed that there was an unfamiliar Blood Clan member in the blessed land. This Blood Clan member was a 9th Order True Lake Realm cultivator, the same as the blessed land's guest. The Blessed Land's guest hurriedly appeared and greeted him. "I am the Blessed Land's guest. May I ask who Sir is?" the unfamiliar Blood Clan member shouted. "Under the orders of Star Moon Holy Senior, you are ordered to gather the local troops within 3 days and gather at Star Moon Holy Land within 10 days. The Blessed Land's guest immediately replied in fear, "Understood." The unfamiliar Blood Clan member passed down the order and quickly flew away. Lu Yi frowned and signaled to Yu Lingfeng, "Call him over." Yu Lingfeng accepted the order and left. After a short while, Yu Lingfeng led the Blessed Land's guest in. "Sir," the Blessed Land's guest saluted. Lu Yi asked, "Why is Star Moon Holy Land gathering troops?" The Blessed Land's guest explained, "Naturally, it is to send troops to the Divine Gate Sea. Sir, you may not know, but every few years, the Holy Race has a large-scale operation against the Divine Gate Sea's Blue Blood Holy Land. It is almost time, so Star Moon Holy Land is making such a move." Lu Yi frowned. "Blue Blood Holy Land is a human race force in the Divine Gate Sea?" Lu Yi was slightly stunned. This name was a bit of a coincidence. He came from the Blue Blood sect. He didn't expect that there would be a force with the name Blue Blood in the blood refining world. Moreover, it was the only human race force. There was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. "Does Star Moon Holy Land have a saint seed?" Lu Yi asked. In the blood refining world, the Blood Clan's gathering places were generally divided into 3 levels: secluded caves, blessed lands, and heavenly caves. But in fact, above the heavenly caves, there was a transcendent existence, and that was a holy land with a saint seed. If Thousand Flow Blessed Land could continue to grow, it would become a Thousand Flow Holy Land when Lan Qiyu reached the Divine Sea. But looking at the entire blood refining world, there weren't many saint seeds, so there weren't many holy lands. They were still 2 months away from the Divine Gate Sea, but the Star Moon Holy Land had gathered all their troops here. It was clear how big the Blood Clan's movements were. Lu Yi originally wanted to rush to the Divine Gate Sea, but if the Blood Clan was going to attack the Blue Blood Holy Land, it wouldn't be appropriate to rush over. They would definitely encounter many dangers along the way. Although Dao Shisan was in the Divine Sea realm, there were Blood Clan members who were stronger than him in the blood refining world. The reason why Lu Yi hadn't encountered any of them was because he had intentionally avoided the places where the powerful Blood Clan members were stationed. Now that the Blood Clan was gathering their troops, the road ahead was bound to be unstable. If they acted rashly, it was very likely that they would encounter an unrivaled expert. Thinking of this, Lu Yi came up with a plan. He said, "Since Star Moon Holy Land asked you to gather them, do it. Count us in." "Yes," the Blood Clan's Blessed Lord replied. "Instead of rushing over with Dao Shisan, it would be better to move with the Blood Clan's army. That way, they could conceal themselves and wait until they reached the Divine Gate Sea." Chapter 1026. The blood breeds acted very quickly. Within 2 days, all the blood breeds under the jurisdiction of the Blessed Land had gathered in one after another. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Every cave had a precedent for how many troops they sent. Generally speaking, each cave would send half of their troops and leave the other half behind. It was the same for the Blessed Lands 1 level above. This was mainly to ensure that there were blood race members guarding their territory. No matter what dangers they encountered, they wouldn't be wiped out in one fell swoop. After that, the blood race members would gather in the Blessed Lands and head to the Star Moon Holy Land. Once they had gathered enough troops, the Star Moon Holy Land would dispatch troops to the Shunkei Sea to attack the human race's Jade Blood Holy Land. 2 days later, Lu Yi brought Dao Shisan and Yu Lingfeng along with a group of blood race members and headed towards the Star Moon Holy Land. Aside from the Blessed Land's master, who was at the True Lake realm, the rest of the blood race members were all at the Cloud River realm. The main reason was that Lu Yi had killed all the True Lake stage vampires in the paradise. Now, the only True Lake stage vampires that Lu Yi had planted with the Soul Control Rune was the True Lake stage. Many of the blood race members were curious about the 2 humans in the group. However, after asking around, they found out that the 2 humans belonged to their Blessed Land's masters. After that, they didn't have any more thoughts. Along the way, they met other groups of blood race members from other blessed lands who were heading towards the Star Moon Holy Land. When the two blessed lands masters met, their groups merged together. The group grew bigger by the day. By the time they arrived at the Star Moon Holy Land, there were almost 1,000 of them. The Star Moon Holy Land was located on a spirit mountain and occupied a large area. It was also the only holy land within a few 100,000 miles with a holy seed. The Blessed Land's masters had received the order and a large number of blood race members were stationed here. Lu Yi looked up and saw that there were blood race members everywhere. There was almost no place to stand from halfway up the mountain to the foot of the mountain. There were at least a few 100,000 of them. His group was considered late and could only find a place to settle down at the foot of the mountain. No blood race members came to receive them or tell them what to do next. They just waited. More and more blood race members gathered and the army continued to grow stronger. Lu Yi secretly observed and was puzzled. How strong was the Jade Blood Holy Land to be able to stand firm in the face of the blood refinement world? Just the Star Moon Holy Land alone had gathered several 100,000 vampires. From the information he obtained from the vampire's blessed lord, there were a total of 4 vampires of this scale. They were controlled by the 4 holy lands of the vampires. When the time came, they would dispatch troops from all 4 directions to pressure the Jade Blood Holy Land of the Divine Watchtower Sea. The Star Moon Holy Land was mainly responsible for the northern, eastern, and western fronts. There were also vampires of similar strength. In other words, for a war like this, the blood race would send out at least 1 million warriors. Among them, there would be countless blood race warriors at the Spirit Sea realm. Could the only human force in this world really stop them? In the tent, Lu Yi called over the soul control divine rune. Lord, you don't know. My lord, you may not know this, but the godly Watchtower Sea is actually a gigantic pool of blood. It can also be called the Blood Sea. The Jade Blood Holy Land is located on an archipelago in the center of the godly Watchtower Sea. It is truly easy to defend and difficult to attack. Moreover, they have many fortifications. Often, before our blood race army can even get close, we will suffer many casualties. Even if we manage to get close, there are many human experts there. Lu Yi was confused when he heard this. The Jade Blood Holy Land was easy to defend and hard to attack. He could see that as the only human force in the blood refinement world, they were located in the Divine Gate Sea because of the terrain. The Divine Gate Sea was a huge blood pool. If blood race members accidentally fell into it, they would lose a layer of skin even if they didn't die. Therefore, in terms of defense, the humans could often achieve twice the result with half the effort. But this wasn't the fundamental reason why the Jade Blood Holy Land could stand firm. Lu Yi couldn't understand. The blood race lord didn't know much about the Jade Blood Holy Land. After all, he hadn't experienced it. This was his first time participating. The blood race's encirclement of the Jade Blood Holy Land. Since he couldn't find out more, Lu Yi waved his hand and dismissed the blood race lord. As the night deepened, Lu Yi walked out of the tent and looked around. He saw spots of fire all over the mountains. Under the illumination of the fire, the blood race was difficult to calculate. Their figures were distorted, like a group of demons dancing. Suddenly, the crisp sound of a bell rang out. Lu Yi sensed something and turned his head. What he saw made him frown. In that direction, a human woman dressed in a thin veil was strolling over. Under the veil, her graceful body was faintly discernible. She had 2 small bells on her wrists and ankles. The crisp sound of the bells was the sound she made when she walked. She was barefoot. When her skirt fluttered, her white and delicate feet were tempting. She seemed to be walking on the ground, but in fact, she was 3 inches above the ground. The woman's attire was rather unsightly. Logically speaking, such equipment could easily arouse one's lust, but strangely enough, Lu Ye's heart did not waver at all when he saw her. Instead, he could not help but feel a sense of horror. Deep in his mind, a dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Then, a figure blurred in front of him. Dao 13 blocked his view. At this moment, Dao 13 was like a cat with its hair standing on end. His body was slightly hunched, and the aura of the Divine Sea realm was uncontrollable. Hot air was coming out of his nostrils, and even his eyes became sharp. Lu Yi had asked Dao 13 to conceal his aura so that he wouldn't expose his divine sea realm background. If that happened, it would be difficult to explain to the other blood race members who didn't know. But the appearance of this woman made him feel threatened. That was why he reacted in such a way. A soft sound came from the woman's nostrils. She looked at Dao 13 in surprise. She didn't expect to see a human in the divine sea realm in this place where the blood race army was gathered. What a pity, she murmured again and looked away. No one knew what she was feeling regretful about. At the same time, Lu Yi, who was being protected by Dao 13, was surprised. When he first saw the woman, he thought she was a blood slave brought by a blood race member. There were hundreds of thousands of blood race soldiers gathered here, but not all of them were blood race members. There were still some blood slaves with cultivation. The status of humans in the blood refinement realm was extremely low, but because of the blood seal, some vampires were very willing to subdue some blood slaves for their own use. After all, compared to other vampires, blood slaves were trustworthy and could be commanded at will. When he first came here, he saw some human blood slaves. So, although he was surprised by the woman's outfit, he didn't think much of it. Until a dragon's roar came out of his mind. The dragon's roar came from the activation of the Twin Dragon Sea Guard. In other words, the woman had used some undetectable method on his soul to activate the protection of the Twin Dragon Sea Guard. Then, Dao 13's instinctive reaction made Lu Yi realize that something was wrong. This woman wanted to harm him. But what was even more strange was that the woman left and didn't continue to attack him. Pushing Dao 13 aside, Lu Yi looked up and saw that the woman continued to walk forward. Wherever she went, all the blood race members stood up and stared at her with infatuation. Their eyes were full of greed and lust. The woman didn't seem to care at all. She just smiled faintly. Lu Yi suddenly realized that the woman wasn't going to attack him. Or rather, she wasn't targeting him. Her mysterious means were targeted at all the blood race members here. He was just affected. Who was she? What was she doing? In that split second, Lu Yi faintly thought of a possibility. Just as this thought came to his mind, he saw the woman standing still and slowly rising into the air. She only stopped when she was 10 feet above the ground. The bells on her wrists and ankles moved without any wind, and the tinkling of the bells could be heard. Although the sound was soft, it was extremely penetrating. In Lu Ye's mind, the dragon's roar came again. Dao 13 lowered his body and growled like a wild beast. Normally, he would only react like this when he was in danger. A soft chuckle rang out. It was as clear and melodious as the sound of a bell, but it brought with it a bone-chilling feeling. The woman formed a seal with her hands and placed them in front of her chest. She said softly, 1,000 pear trees, 10,000 pear trees, bloom. Dots of starlight suddenly flew out from her body. They were as dazzling as the stars. The starlight spread out and covered a radius of 10 feet. In that instant, Lu Yi felt a stinging pain on his skin. He was on high alert. Dao 13! He hurriedly shouted. Dao 13 immediately turned around and pounced on him. He pushed him to the ground and covered him with his sturdy body. Almost at the same time that Dao 13 protected Lu Yi, the dots of starlight suddenly bloomed like white pear blossoms. What followed was a violent roar and explosion. Within 10,000 feet of the woman, all the Blood Clan members who heard the sound of the bell died one after another with blank expressions on their faces. Under the cover of the light, the area was as bright as day. However, all the blood race members turned into ashes and disappeared. In Lu Ye's perception, Yu Lingfeng, who had been planted with the soul manipulation divine rune, and the Blessing Lord, who was at the True Lake stage, also disappeared without a trace. The violent sound made Lu Ye's eardrums hurt. He was secretly shocked when he felt the power of this inexplicable spell. This kind of method was not something an ordinary Spirit Sea realm cultivator could perform. At the very least, Lu Yi had never seen such a method before. And the aura that the mysterious woman released at that moment was so powerful that Lu Yi found it hard to believe. Even the sect master couldn't be compared to this woman. Continuous explosions came from not far away, accompanied by the crisp ringing of the bells. It was obvious that the woman was on a killing spree. Chapter 1027. Blood-blooded humans. Someone from the blood race shouted in surprise. Then, streaks of energy belonging to the divine sea realm rose up. Under the night sky, many blood race cultivators at the divine sea realm reacted quickly. They turned into bloody lights and dashed towards the woman. For a moment, the scene was grand and chaotic. Suddenly, there was a clear sound of a sword. Then, a dot of cold light bloomed in the sky. It split into thousands of rays and slashed down from the sky. In the densely packed camp of the blood kindred, there were many casualties. Many of the blood kindred were cut into pieces by the sharp sword chi before they could even react. Some of the blood kindred at the divine sea realm screamed and fell from the sky. Many rays of sword light wreaked havoc in the camp of the blood race. Under the night sky, a figure stood in the sky with sword chi around him. He was so majestic that he looked like a god who had descended from the sky. Lu Yi got up in a sorry state and shook his head. When he turned around, he saw that there was no one left alive within a radius of 3,000 meters around him. All the blood race cultivators in this area had been wiped out by the mysterious woman's spell. Even Dao Shursan's back was covered in blood and flesh. Dao Shursan was a divine ocean realm cultivator and his body was extremely strong. The woman's spell wasn't targeted at Dao Shursan. He had only been affected by the spell, but he was already so injured. If they were to fight face to face, Dao Shursan would be no match for the woman. He looked up again and saw an old man with white hair and a beard in the sky. He was wielding a sword to kill his enemies. He was a sword cultivator. His sword intent was so sharp that even looking at him with the naked eye would make one's eyes sore and feel a stabbing pain in one's soul. It was as if a sharp sword would slash down on one's head at any moment. The woman and the old man were obviously together. After the woman made her move, the old man jumped out as well. They weren't the only ones. Although the old man had killed some of the blood race cultivators, there were too many of them. Many of them had already reached the woman. Although the woman was powerful, she was only a dharma consolidating cultivator. Under such circumstances, she couldn't fight against so many people. However, at this moment, another figure descended from the sky like a meteor. He landed right in front of the woman, causing the ground in front of her to crack. Lu Yi couldn't help but narrow his eyes. With the augmentation of the spiritual runes of insight in his eyes, his pupils shrank involuntarily. The third figure that appeared out of nowhere wasn't too burly or tall, but his body was brimming with vitality. Even Dao Shursan had to admit defeat in front of him. As soon as he raised his hand, he caught a blood kindred that was close to him. No matter how hard the blood kindred struggled, he couldn't get rid of Lu Li. Lu Li squeezed his hand and crushed the blood kindred's head. Immediately after, his figure swayed. He seemed to be clumsily executing punches and kicks, but those punches and kicks all contained extremely terrifying might. Without exception, all the blood race clansmen within 30 meters of him and the woman exploded into clouds of bloody mist. The old sword cultivator in the air also controlled his flying sword to accurately kill the many blood clan members in the divine sea realm who were charging towards the mysterious woman. There was actually no one who achieved anything. With the protection of this body cultivator and sword cultivator, the woman was able to unleash even more of her power. She unleashed one powerful spell technique after another, and wherever they passed, large swathes of blood tribe members would fall. Blood flowed like rivers in the blood tribe camp, and corpses were everywhere. Blood flowed everywhere. More and more powerful auras rose from the peak of the mountain. Such a huge commotion naturally alarmed the most powerful blood clan members gathered at the peak of the mountain. The auras rising from the peak were much more powerful than those at the divine sea realm at the foot of the mountain and halfway up the mountain. However, at this moment, a furious roar came from the peak of the mountain. "How dare you!" At the same time, a streak of light suddenly shot out from the peak of the mountain. It was as fast as lightning. A person's voice came from the streak of light. "We didn't succeed." But the old sword cultivator glanced at the peak of the mountain and shouted rudely. Then, he turned to the woman and the body cultivator and shouted, Let's go. The woman pursed her lips and smiled. She put her palms together and gently pushed them forward. A large amount of starlight flew out and instantly covered a radius of 3,000 meters. There was a loud explosion and a dazzling light. The woman and the body cultivator shot up into the sky. In the air, the old sword cultivator put away his flying sword and was about to escape. In a flash, Lu Yi shot up into the sky and headed in the direction of the old man. He rushed over. Dao Shisan saw this and hurriedly followed. Lu Ye's abnormal movements naturally didn't escape the old sword cultivator's perception. In fact, the old sword cultivator had noticed it the moment he appeared. After all, the mysterious woman's spell had killed all the blood clan members. Only Lu Yi and Dao Shisan were safe and sound. It was naturally eye-catching. His eyes. The old man hesitated for a moment. Then he urged his sword to wrap around Lu Yi and Dao Shisan. He chased after the woman and the body cultivator. Lu Yi let out a long sigh. Although he was wrapped in the old man's sword and flew with him, Lu Yi could clearly sense a wisp of pure sword intent enveloping him. If he did anything inappropriate, the old man would immediately kill him. Naturally, he didn't dare to do anything inappropriate. He even told Dao Shisan, "Don't move." Dao Shisan immediately calmed down. The old man glanced at him with a pensive look in his eyes. They sped along the way. At first, there were a large number of blood clan experts chasing after them. However, sword cultivators were so fast that even the blood clan's blood escape technique couldn't catch up. Moreover, when facing a sword cultivator like the old man, the number of blood clan experts chasing after them might not be enough. Therefore, after a while, the blood clan experts who were chasing after them stopped. They watched helplessly as the old man's sword disappeared from their sight. 2 hours later, the old man pressed his sword down and landed on top of a mountain peak, waiting quietly. He didn't care about Lu Yi and Dao Shisan. He sat cross-legged beside them and focused on regulating his breathing. Lu Yi had a lot of questions to ask, but seeing the old man like this, he didn't want to disturb him. He could only stay put. He had rushed toward the old man at the last moment because he wanted to leave with the old sword cultivator. If he guessed correctly, the blood clan experts who appeared tonight would be at these human experts in the blood race camp were all from the Jade Blood Holy Land. The blood clan's angry roar had undoubtedly confirmed Lu Ye's guess. He was originally going to the Jade Blood Holy Land, but because the blood clan was gathering troops, the road ahead was dangerous. He could only take Dao Shisan with him under the guise of a blood slave. Tomato-free reading now that he had a chance to escape, he naturally couldn't miss it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so easy to escape when the blood clan really started attacking the Jade Blood Holy Land. Dao Shisan twisted his body at the side. The injury on his back must have made him feel uncomfortable. Lu Yi checked him and found that it was only a flesh wound. It wasn't a big deal, so he didn't bother with him. With Dao Shisan's physique, such an injury could be healed in a few days. In the silent night, the space beside them distorted slightly. Then, a figure appeared. It was an old man with white hair and a beard. He was short and skinny, but his eyes were extremely spirited. Lu Ye's heart trembled. He knew that this person was a ghost cultivator. Moreover, he was definitely the strongest ghost cultivator he had encountered so far. This was because he didn't notice the ghost cultivator at all before he appeared. Even Dao Shisan didn't notice any clues. Recalling what had happened just now, Lu Yi guessed that this ghost cultivator should be the one who shouted at the top of the mountain. He was a human ghost cultivator. It was obvious why he had run to the top of the mountain where the blood clan experts gathered. He obviously wanted to kill Saint Venerable Xingyu. Over the years, the blood clan had besieged the Jade Blood Sacred Land on a large scale. The Star Moon Sacred Land was in charge of coming here. If they could kill Saint Venerable Xingyu before the battle, it would be a great deterrent to the hundreds of thousands of blood clan troops. It might even cause the blood clan troops to lose their morale. This would reduce the pressure on the Jade Blood Sacred Land in the upcoming battle. However, he had obviously failed. That was why he shouted, "I didn't succeed." The strength of a holy seed was much stronger than that of an ordinary blood clan member. Saint Venerable Xingyu wasn't a newborn holy seed like Lan Qiue. He had already cultivated to the peak of this world. How could he be killed so easily? Although the female Dharma cultivator, the old sword cultivator, and the body cultivator were disrupting the Blood Clan's camp and distracting the Blood Clan experts, the ghost cultivator still didn't succeed. This should be the rendezvous point that the human experts had agreed to meet. The old sword cultivator was the fastest. Even with Lu Yi and Dao Shisan, he was still the first to arrive. The second was the ghost cultivator. However, as soon as he appeared, two streams of light rushed over from not far away. They quickly landed in front of him, revealing the figures of the woman and the body cultivator. Several pairs of eyes looked at Lu Yi and Dao Shisan. The ghost cultivator said, "Jianghu, why did you capture these two blood slaves?" The woman pursed her lips and smiled. "These two aren't ordinary blood slaves. The stronger one is at the divine ocean realm. The other one is slightly weaker, but he's at the true lake realm." When Dao Shisan activated his spiritual energy, she clearly sensed it. However, she was busy killing Blood Clan members. Dao Shisan was only protecting Lu Yi and didn't attack her. Therefore, she didn't pay attention to Dao Shisan. The ghost cultivator was shocked. A divine ocean realm blood slave? This isn't common. He changed the topic. But blood slaves are blood slaves. Unless there's a holy seed to remove the blood imprint in their bodies, their status as blood slaves will never change even if their original owners die. They will only bow and scrape before the Blood Clan for the rest of their lives. What's the use of capturing them? The body cultivator didn't say anything. He just stood at the side and watched coldly. Lu Yi hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed. "Greetings to all of you. Seniors, please know that the two of us aren't blood slaves. We were planted with a blood imprint by the Blood Clan. This matter had to be explained clearly. Otherwise, they would be killed by these unbelievably strong divine ocean realm cultivators. That would be an injustice." The ghost cultivator grinned. "Of course you won't admit that you're a blood slave." As he spoke, a dagger suddenly appeared in his hand. "Come, I'll send you on your way. I promise you won't feel any pain." Chapter 1028. Sensing the old ghost cultivator's malice, Dao Shisan appeared in front of Lu Yi in a flash. His gaze was solemn and his aura was ready to explode. The old ghost cultivator stopped in his tracks, slightly surprised. "They're not blood slaves." The old sword cultivator called Jianghu slowly opened his eyes and said, "Why do you say that?" The old ghost cultivator tilted his head and looked at him. Jianghu's gaze was like a sword as he looked at Dao Shisan in front of Lu Yi. "This person should be a Dao soldier." "Dao soldier?" The others were stunned and carefully sized him up. After a while, the female cultivator nodded slightly. "I was wondering why I felt that he was weird. So he's a Dao soldier. Your eyes are really sharp. You actually saw through him at a glance." The old ghost cultivator was stunned. Why would there be a Dao soldier in the blood refining realm? He looked at Lu Yi. "Kid, you made this Dao soldier?" Dao Shisan was a Dao soldier. Dao Shisan had personally told Lu Yi that. However, Lu Yi really didn't know what a Dao soldier was. When he first heard this title, he thought it was a creation of Yanshi, similar to his master's clone, Shao Dai. However, Dao Shisan wasn't a creation of Yanshi. He was a living person. Lu Yi shook his head honestly. "Then why is he following you and being so loyal to you?" The old ghost cultivator clearly didn't believe him. Normally, a Dao soldier would only be loyal to their master. However, this matter was indeed strange. He also didn't think that Lu Yi, a true lake realm cultivator, could make a Dao soldier like Dao Shisan. Maybe he and I hit it off. Lu Yi naturally couldn't say that it was the work of a soul controller. Nonsense. The old ghost cultivator was amused by him. But why would there be a Dao soldier in the blood refining realm? The female cultivator frowned. She really couldn't understand. In the blood refining realm, humans didn't have a good cultivation environment. Even if they were taken in as blood slaves, they couldn't have high cultivation. Therefore, divine sea realm blood slaves were very rare. not to mention Dao soldiers. It was difficult for humans to cultivate, so who could make a Dao soldier? That's why I brought them along, Jianghu said slowly. Just because there aren't any Dao soldiers in the blood refining realm doesn't mean that there aren't any other places. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's bodies trembled. Old ghost, you mean? The old ghost cultivator's eyes narrowed. However, Lu Yi couldn't hear what the old ghost cultivator said next. He only sensed a surge of spiritual sense. Clearly, these people were communicating with each other using spiritual sense. As they conversed, they kept looking at him and Dao Shisan. After a short while, their conversation ended. The female magic cultivator nodded slightly. It's easy to verify whether or not they're blood slaves. We'll definitely encounter vampires on the way back. We'll know when we test them. With that, she produced a spirit boat. Let's go. The few of them landed on the spirit boat in a flash. Lu Yi gave Dao 13 a look, and the two of them landed on the boat as well. The female Dharma cultivator channeled her spiritual energy, and the spirit boat immediately turned into a stream of light that shot into the sky. Along the way, the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators all seemed to have a lot on their minds and were very quiet. Lu Yi had many questions to ask, but it was not the right time to ask. Along the way, they encountered a group of vampires that should be heading to the Star Moon Holy Land. Under the command of the female Dharma cultivator, Lu Yi and Dao 13 jumped off the spirit boat and rushed into the group of vampires to kill them. This was their way of verifying whether or not Lu Yi and Dao 13 were blood slaves. As blood slaves, they couldn't harm vampires in the slightest. In their hearts, vampires were supreme. Naturally, they wouldn't be blood slaves if they dared to kill vampires so wantonly. After verifying that Lu Yi and Dao 13 were pure humans, the old ghost cultivator's attitude towards Lu Yi became much more amiable. He also started chatting with him. He was surprised to learn that Lu Yi had come all the way from the north to join the Jade Blood Holy Land. One had to know that this journey wasn't short. Even though Dao 13 was a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, it wasn't easy for two humans to travel all the way south. Kid, how did you sneak into the vampires group? The old ghost cultivator was very puzzled. Logically speaking, if Lu Yi and Dao 13 weren't blood slaves, they shouldn't have been able to stay safe in the vampires group. However, they were able to stay safe in the hundreds of thousands of vampires. Junior has a few tricks up my sleeve. I was able to trick a vampire into thinking that we were his blood slaves, Lu Yihanhu explained. The old ghost cultivator understood and glanced at Dao 13. No wonder he's so loyal to you. You used that method on him as well. Dao soldiers generally had low intelligence. Since Lu Yi had the means to confuse vampires, it wasn't a problem for him to confuse a Dao soldier. Yes. The old ghost cultivator warned, when we go back to the Holy Land, don't use that method casually. If I find out, I won't let you off easily. Lu Yi said happily, Seniors, you really are from the Jade Blood Holy Land. It's the real deal. Lu Ye's heart calmed down. The spirit boat flew very quickly. Although Dao 13 was also a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he was limited by the quality of Lu Ye's flying spirit tool. Thus, although his flying spirit tool wasn't slow, it couldn't compare to the speed of the boat. In terms of speed alone, the current flying speed was naturally much faster than before. The further they went, the more desolate it became. It wasn't because of the environment, but because this place was close to the Divine Gate Sea. The human experts of the Jade Blood Holy Land would often go out of the Divine Gate Sea to take a look. Which vampire dared to gather here? It could be said that no vampire dared to casually step into the area around the Divine Gate Sea. It would only become lively when the Blood Race's army attacked the Jade Blood Holy Land. A few days later, a vast expanse of blood red appeared in front of them. They had arrived at the Divine Gate Sea. The seawater was like a pool of blood, and it was exactly the same as the blood pool Lu Yi had seen before. However, this blood pool was a bit too big. Elegant, right? The spirit boat didn't stop. It flew over the blood sea and continued forward. After flying for another half a day, they finally arrived at an island that was scattered all over the place. From afar, These islands looked as small as chess pieces in the Blood Sea. However, when they got closer, they realized that these islands were not small at all. The islands were oval-shaped and distributed above the Blood Sea. In the middle of these islands, there was an even larger island. On each of the outer islands, there was a huge city. The city walls were covered with all kinds of fortifications, and human cultivators were going in and out of the city. When it was time for the blood race to attack the Jade Blood Holy Land, the human side was naturally actively preparing for war. The many fortifications on the outer islands could be said to be the Jade Blood Holy Land's strongest line of defense. It was also because of this impregnable line of defense that the Jade Blood Holy Land could defeat the blood race's attacks again and again. However, Lu Yi felt that things weren't so simple. From the information he had received, the blood race's army was at least 1 million soldiers. With such a huge lineup, including holy venerables and heavenly venerables, the Jade Blood Holy Land might not be able to stop them with just this line of defense. Unless the Jade Blood Holy Land had enough human experts. For example, Jianghu's team. But could there really be so many of them? To be honest, Lu Yi was already very surprised to see 4 such experts at once. No matter how strong the Jade Blood Holy Land's foundation was, there shouldn't be too many of them. He couldn't understand. But he had already achieved the goal of this trip. It had been nearly 5 months since he set off from Qianlu Blessed Land, and he finally arrived at the only human force in this world. The Deshang he wanted to find must be here. The female cultivator drove the spirit boat straight to the big island in the center of the islands. That should be the foundation of the Jade Blood Holy Land. On the big island, there were human figures everywhere. Many of them had cultivation, and there were also mortals who had never cultivated before. However, these mortals didn't have to experience the hardships of the human race outside, so they lived in peace and contentment. This made Lu Yi, who had seen all kinds of hardships of the human race after coming to this world, sigh. The Jade Blood Holy Land could only shelter a limited number of humans. Apart from the humans here, the vast majority of humans lived in the abyss of suffering. Now, there was one more blessed land in the blood refining world. With the improvement of Lan Chiyue's strength and the continuous expansion of his territory, the number of humans he could shelter would definitely increase. Along the way, he had enslaved many blessed lords of the blood kindred, and even a celestial venerable. Under the rule of those enslaved blood kindred, the human race's situation should be better. But this still couldn't solve the problem fundamentally. The Jade Blood Holy Land was a hope, a prairie fire. If one day, this prairie fire lit up the entire blood refining world, the human race would truly be free from their suffering. The spirit boat stopped at a spirit mountain in the center of the big island. The spirit mountain wasn't high, only a few hundred feet. There was a continuous cluster of buildings on it. Lu Yi guessed that it was the place where the higher-ups of the Jade Blood Holy Land gathered. "Wait here," the female cultivator instructed him. She put away the spirit boat and walked up the spirit mountain with the other 3. After returning from a mission, they naturally had to report back. Although they didn't kill Saint Xingyu this time, at least they had a rough idea of the military strength of the northern battlefront. In this way, the Holy Land could also respond. Before the Holy Lord summoned Lu Yi, they couldn't casually bring Lu Yi up. Lu Yi and Dao Shisan stood quietly and waited. There were no cultivators on duty here, and ordinary humans wouldn't come close to this place. This made the two seem a little out of place. After waiting for a long time, they felt a little bored. They looked around and saw a stone tablet not far away. Lu Yi glanced at it. At first, he didn't pay much attention to it. But soon, he shifted his gaze with a surprised expression. He walked up to the stone tablet and sized it up with rapt attention. At the same time, at the top of the mountain, a middle-aged man stood on a floating stone with his hands behind his back, overlooking the islands. Jianghu and the others walked behind the man and cupped their fists together. "Holy Lord!" The man turned around, revealing a handsome face with a warm smile on his face. "You're all back? You've worked hard." Chapter 1029. Jianghu and the others had returned to the Jade Blood Holy Land's Central Island's Spirit Mountain. They reported what they had seen and done on this trip. After Jianghu finished speaking, the old ghost cultivator said, "It's a pity that I didn't manage to kill Star Moon Saint this time. Originally, I had a chance to kill him, but that guy was too vigilant. He reacted the moment I attacked. In the end, I only managed to injure him." The Saint Lord shook his head and said, "Every saint seed in this world is favored by heaven and earth. It can be said that they are the children of destiny in this world. How can they be so easily killed? It's already very impressive that Senior Wu Chang was able to injure him." Everyone present knew how impressive a saint seed was. It was not something that an ordinary blood clan member could compare to. Wu Chang, for example, said that he had a chance to succeed, but in reality he didn't succeed. Even if he was given another chance, it would be impossible for him to succeed. Jianghu had also fought a saint seed head-on. With his strong foundation as a sword cultivator, he could only fight to a draw with the saint seed. This showed how powerful a saint seed was. It could be said that none of the blood clan's saint seeds were weaker than them. However, such a powerful holy seed had been beaten to death by someone before. And the person who had done this was the Saint Lord in front of them. It was also because of that battle that top experts like Jianghu and Wu Chang wholeheartedly acknowledged the middle-aged man's identity and status as the Saint Lord. It should be known that whether it was Jianghu, Wu Chang, or the female cultivator, they were all once famous figures in their world. They were all considered the top fighting forces of the human clan. Each of them was arrogant and unruly, and each of them was a character who could topple the sky with anger. They had all suppressed an era. It was not easy to make people like them submit. Before the middle-aged man appeared, Jianghu and the others were scattered all over the blood-refining realm. They were against the blood clan because they were strong enough and because they were not willing to submit to anyone. It was the middle-aged man's appearance that mixed these scattered sand together and created the Jade Blood Holy Land in the Divine Gate Sea. It was a pure land for the human clan. It stood until now. But now, the Jade Blood Holy Land was at its most critical moment. The Blood Clan has more troops this time than before. It seems that they want to finish this in one battle, the Saint Lord said slowly. The Holy Lord said slowly, "News from the east, south, and west has also been sent back. There are several holy seeds guarding each battle line and hundreds of thousands of soldiers. The total number of blood ray soldiers in all four directions is at least 3 million, maybe even more." Jianghu and the others frowned. This number was much higher than in the past. Although the blood race had sent troops to invade many times in the past, they had never exceeded 1 million. Thus, the Jade Blood Holy Land had been able to resist them. However, the Jade Blood Holy Land had also paid an extremely heavy price. When Lu Yi came this time, he saw that the Jade Blood Holy Land was surrounded by oval-shaped archipelagos and a large island in the center, but in fact, the terrain here was not like this at the beginning. In the beginning, there were many scattered islands in the center of the Shunkai Sea, at least 4 times the number of islands now. Due to the repeated battles, the outer islands were all shattered and sunk. Only the inner archipelago was left standing. This time, if they couldn't even protect the innermost islands, then the Jade Blood Holy Land would only have the central island left. It would be impossible to defend. Therefore, this time, the Holy Land's priority was to protect the outer islands. The most important thing was whether they could withstand the attack of the vampires. If they couldn't, once the vampires landed on the islands, they would destroy the islands immediately, creating a gap in the Holy Land's defensive line. Judging from the Blood Clan's troops this time, it would be very difficult for the Holy Land to stop the Blood Clan and keep the enemy outside. "We can just kill our way out. The Blood Flash world is so big. We can kill the Blood Clan anywhere," Wu Chang said. Jianghu shook his head. "It's easy for us to kill our way out, but what about the others on the island? They will definitely be angered by the Blood Clan. I'm afraid no one will be able to survive." The number of humans on the island was very large. They were all humans that the Holy Land had migrated from hundreds of thousands of miles around the Shunkai Sea in the early years. After decades of accumulation, the human race lived and worked in peace and contentment, and the base number was even larger. It was also because of this large base number of humans that the Holy Land could provide an endless supply of cultivators, turning into the Holy Land's power to resist the Blood Clan. Cultivators and ordinary mortals had always been inseparable. Honor and disgrace were one. This was the same whether in the 9 provinces or the blood-refining world. Wu Chang said, "They can't expect us to live and die with them. It doesn't make sense." That being said, if things really got to that point, there might not be many top powerhouses of the human race who would be willing to flee alone. The female cultivator who had been silent all this time spoke up. "What can our homeland provide?" These people were not rootless trees or water without a source. They all had some background. The Blood Clan had never understood how so many human powerhouses had appeared out of nowhere in the blood-refining world. If there were only 1 or 2 of them, it would be fine. There were so many humans that there were bound to be 1 or 2 lucky ones who had obtained some kind of opportunity. However, there were not just 1 or 2 of these human powerhouses, but dozens or even hundreds of them. This was the fundamental reason why the Blue Blood Holy Land had been able to stand firm under the attacks of the Blood Clan army time and time again. It was because the number of top powerhouses on the Blue Blood Holy Land side was enough to repel the Blood Clan army's attacks time and time again, causing them to suffer heavy losses. The Holy Lord shook his head. "This is also what I'm puzzled about. I tried to contact our homeland the day before yesterday, and the response I received was that they had already provided us with assistance." However, he did not see any assistance. "They have already provided it." The female cultivator frowned and suddenly looked pensive. "It can't be." Jianghu undoubtedly realized something. Just as he was about to speak, the Holy Lord suddenly looked down the mountain with a puzzled expression. Then, his figure flashed and instantly disappeared. When he reappeared, he was at the foot of the mountain, in front of a stone stele. Lu Yi stood in front of the stone stele and looked at the line of words carved on it. He softly read, "Forever flowing jade blood." This shocked him to the extreme because the Blue Blood sect also had a similar stone stele with the same line of words carved on it. However, the Blue Blood sect's stone stele could only be considered half of a stone stele. The other half was with the Pill Heart sect. The 2 stone steles were combined into one to form the complete stone stele. It was said that the Pill Heart sect's sect master had personally carved it a few decades ago. However, he had split it in 2, giving one to the Blue Blood sect and one to the Pill Heart sect to symbolize the friendship between the 2 sections. However, after a few decades, the friendship between the 2 sects had been split into 2, just like the original stone stele. It was truly a sad sight. Lu Yi had not expected to see something similar to the one in his sect here. After reading this line, he could not help but read the next one. "Pill Heart illuminates 10,000 years." He could not help but frown. His sect was the Blue Blood sect, and there was a Blue Blood Holy Land here. There was also a stone stele similar to the one in his sect. This was too much of a coincidence. Tao 13's aura suddenly fluctuated and the pressure of the Divine Sea realm spread out. Lu Yi was shocked and his thoughts were interrupted. He raised his hand and pressed the Panshan saber at his waist. When he turned his head, he saw a middle-aged man standing not far from him with his hands behind his back. He had not noticed when the other party had arrived. If Tao 13 had not reacted, he would not have noticed. Swish, swish, swish. Several figures flew over and stood in front of the middle-aged man. It was Jianghu and the others. At the same time, Lu Yi clearly sensed that various powerful divine wills spread out from all over the central island and paid attention to this place. Obviously, they had noticed the commotion here. However, these divine wills were soon withdrawn. Lu Yi broke out in a cold sweat. Only now did he realize that he had underestimated the strength of the Blue Blood Holy Land. Judging from the traces of the divine wills just now, there were probably dozens of Divine Sea Realm cultivators gathered on the island. And this was just the traces. What about those who did not? He calmed himself down and looked at the middle-aged man. At first glance, he felt that this man looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. However, Lu Yi knew that he had never seen this man before. As for the identity of this man, He could tell from Jianghu and the others' standing position that this man was Saint Lord J of the Blue Blood Holy Land. Dao soldier. The middle-aged man did not look at Lu Yi immediately. Instead, he looked at Dao 13 and used his powerful divine wills to examine Dao 13. Dao 13, who was not very intelligent, was infuriated by the man's unscrupulous behavior. He roared and rushed forward, punching the middle-aged man. Lu Ye's expression changed and he quickly shouted, "Stop!" However, he was a bit too late. With a loud bang, the middle-aged man did not move an inch. He raised his hand and easily blocked Dao Shisan's all-out attack. A shockwave that could be seen with the naked eye swept out, causing his hair and clothes to flutter in the wind. Suddenly, he raised one hand and pointed at a certain spot on Dao 13's chest. His movement was not fast. Even Lu Yi could see it clearly. However, there was an indescribable charm to it. What surprised Lu Yi was that Dao Shisan did not dodge his attack. Dao 13's body stiffened as if he had been struck by lightning. Then, his head drooped and he fell to the ground. Lu Ye's pupils shrank to the size of a needle. Endless coldness filled his body. He placed his hand on the Qing mountain saber and did not know if he should pull it out or not. He knew Dao 13's strength. He was not at the top of the Divine Sea realm, but he was not weak either. However, this man had subdued him so easily. Lu Yi did not even know what he had done. This guy. How terrifying was his cultivation level? The middle-aged man seemed to sense Lu Ye's worry and said, "Don't worry. He's just asleep." Lu Yi quickly looked at Dao 13 and found that he was indeed just asleep. He was even snoring. Lu Yi was speechless for a moment. This sort of Dao weapon was forged with a flawed technique, which is why Dao weapons are not very intelligent. The middle-aged man raised his head to look at Lu Yi. "How is Taishan?" Chapter 1030. Who is Taishan? Lu Yi looked at the middle-aged man. "You don't know him?" Lu Yi shook his head. He had never heard of the name Taishan and didn't know why the man in front of him would ask about him. The middle-aged man frowned. The young man's expression didn't seem fake. Under his powerful spiritual will, a true Lake Realm cultivator couldn't lie to his face. It seemed like the young man in front of him didn't know Taishan. But not knowing didn't mean he hadn't seen him before. Because other than him, only Taishan knew the method of refining the Dao soldier. Back then, he and Taishan had studied the method of refining the Dao soldier. But at that time, he felt that this method was too harmful, so he gave up on it. Now, it seemed that Taishan had used that method. The Dao soldier sitting in front of him was undoubtedly made by Taishan. That was why he could subdue Dao 13 so easily. Otherwise, no matter how strong he was, he couldn't make Dao 13 fall into a deep sleep with a finger. For people like them, killing an enemy was easy, but subduing an enemy often took several times more effort. With a Dao soldier made by Taishan and reading the next sentence of Jade Blood Eternity, the origin of the young man in front of them was obvious. But his cultivation seemed a bit low. Was this the help provided by his homeland? "Where are you from?" the middle-aged man asked. Lu Ye's eyes were filled with disbelief. He stared blankly at the middle-aged man in front of him, almost thinking that he had heard wrong. He asked with uncertainty, "What did you say?" The middle-aged man smiled and asked again, "Which continent are you from? Which sect are you from?" Even with Lu Ye's calm temperament, he was still shocked by this. He never thought that he would hear someone mention the words, 9 continents, in the blood-refining realm. Many thoughts rolled in his mind. He immediately reacted. "Senior, are you from 9 continents?" The middle-aged man nodded. "I'm not the only one from 9 continents. They are all from 9 continents." Behind him, Jianghu and the others looked at Lu Yi with mischievous eyes. Lu Yi came from 9 continents, so they knew all about him. Because in the blood-refining realm, a Dao soldier didn't exist, let alone a Divine Sea realm cultivator. A Dao soldier. Only the 9 prefectures could give birth to such a Dao soldier. However, they hadn't confirmed this before, so they didn't tell Lu Yi about it. They only planned to ask him in detail after bringing him back. Now seeing Lu Ye's reaction, he knew that his guess was correct. This young man was truly from the 9 provinces. In this foreign land, he suddenly saw people from his homeland. Even though Lu Yi was born in the same generation as him, she couldn't help but feel a sense of familiarity. Thinking about it carefully, Zhou Tianji had a use for sending him to the blood refinement realm. Naturally, he could also send others over. In Nu's opinion, the state cultivators who sued M were sent all over this place. Their official title was Oil Can See Repairman, and only then did they have the chance to roast you twice. The 5 clans must resist and establish a human power to resist the vampires endlessly. Lu Yi finally put down his hand from the hilt of his saber. He took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. Then he cupped his fists and bowed. I'm Lu Yi of the Jade Blood Sect in the Force Province. Greetings, seniors. Jianghu and the others were stunned when they heard that. They all looked at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was also stunned. He stepped forward and grabbed Lu Ye's arm. You're from the Jade Blood Sect of the War Province? The Jade Blood Sect of the Fragrant Mountain? Lu Yi found that the reaction of the person in front of him was a little big. Logically speaking, with his cultivation, his mind was firm and steady. Even if the heavens were to collapse before him, he would surely be able to remain calm. But at that instant just now, his breathing was actually slightly unstable. This was obviously a sign that his mind was in turmoil. Who's in charge of the Jade Blood Sect now? The middle-aged man asked, his voice trembling slightly. Our sect master, Tangfit. Is the old man well? He's well. Lu Yi frowned slightly. The other party's grip on his arm hurt a little. The middle-aged man obviously realized it too. He quickly let go of Lu Ye's arm and nodded repeatedly. It's good that he's well. It's good that he's well. Lu Yi was surprised and doubtful. He vaguely guessed that the person in front of him probably had some relationship with his sect. Otherwise, with his cultivation, he wouldn't have lost his composure like this. But who was he? Why was he so concerned about his sect and the sect master? Senior, you are... The middle-aged man took a deep breath and smiled warmly. My name is Feng Wujiang. I don't know if you've heard of me. Lu Yi was stunned for a moment, then immediately blurted out, Impossible. Feng Wujiang was a name that resounded like thunder. Not long after he stepped onto the path of cultivation, he had heard of this name. As he grew, he continued to recognize the weight of this name. It could be said that the name Feng Wujiang represented an era. Not just him, but the entire 9 prefectures. Who didn't know about it? The Jade Blood Sect's success was because of Feng Wujiang, and its failure was also because of Feng Wujiang. Back then, the sect was able to become a first-rank sect because of the leadership of this eldest senior brother. Eldest senior brother died, and the sect gradually declined. The remnants of the poison were still in the Spirit Stream battlefield and the Cloud River battlefield. Lu Yi was targeted and killed by the Myriad Devil Ridge. Even when he entered the military prefecture guard, he was suppressed by the Divine Sea realm of his own sect because of Feng Wujiang. Lu Ye's impression of this eldest senior brother was very complicated. Naturally, there was worship, but more than that, there was resentment. He didn't know the specifics of what happened back then. No one had told him in detail. However, the current situation of his sect couldn't be separated from this eldest senior brother. Even before he entered the Jade Blood Sect, the Jade Blood Sect was almost wiped out by Tianji. Thoughts churned in his mind. Looking at the person in front of him, Lu Yi frowned and said, My eldest senior brother has been dead for almost 40 years. Don't lie to me. Jianghu said, The people in front of you are all dead people. What do you mean? Lu Yi looked at him. Jianghu said, I am the 5th sword master of the North Profound Sword Sect. The female cultivator pursed her lips and smiled. The 7th sect master of the 10,000 Laws sect of the Thunder Prefecture, Yuji. Even the body cultivator who had been silent all this time said, The 3rd sect master of the Vitality sect of the War Prefecture, Meng Jie. The ghost cultivator Wu Chang chuckled. I'm not a sect master or sect master. I'm a rogue cultivator. Even if I told you, you wouldn't know. It was unknown whether this was true or not. But ghost cultivators had always been low-key and secretive. there were some who deliberately hid their origins. Lu Ye's mind was shaken by these simple words. He didn't know when the 3rd, 5th, and 7th generations were, but the sect masters and sect masters of the 9 prefectures had obviously passed down more than these few generations. In other words, no matter who these people were, they were all old antiques. They had lived for at least a few hundred years, or even longer. Lu Yi was familiar with the North Profound Sword sect and the Vitality sect. They were first-rank sects of the Haotian Alliance of the War Prefecture. Lu Yi had also dealt with the 10,000 Laws sect of the Thunder Prefecture. Back then, at the core of the Spirit Stream battlefield, which sect hadn't been blackmailed by him? The 10,000 Laws sect belonged to the 10,000 Demons Ridge. In the world of the 9 prefectures, the two camps were at odds with each other. However, in the blood-refining world, top experts from different camps could peacefully coexist and serve the same person. How bizarre was that? Yet it was natural. Because this wasn't the 9 prefectures. This was the blood-refining world ruled by the blood race. Whether it was the Haotian Alliance or the 10,000 Demons Ridge, they only had one identity in the blood-refining world. Cultivators of the human race. No wonder Jianghu, Wuchang, and Mengjie all looked a bit old. It was because they had lived for countless years. Only Yu Ji was a woman. She had the ability to retain her youthful appearance. Although one couldn't tell her age, her real age might not be younger than the others. These people were undoubtedly sent by Tianji of the 9 prefectures. And they definitely weren't sent here all at once. They should have been sent here one by one at different times. In this case, Tianji of the 9 prefectures had already located the blood-refining world. He had been using various means to save the human race in this world. There were some results, but it was still difficult to change the general trend of the blood-refining world. In fact, there was one thing that had always puzzled Lu Yi. That was, the lifespan of a Divine Sea Realm cultivator was usually very long. For this and that reason, my lifespan has been reduced to a certain extent. But I'm still alive. A Divine Sea Realm cultivator could easily live for a few hundred years. The two camps of the 9 prefectures often fought against each other. It was true that there were many Divine Sea Realm cultivators who had fallen. However, it wasn't to say that every Divine Sea Realm cultivator in every era would die. Especially those Divine Sea Realm cultivators who could lead an era like eldest senior brother. If they didn't die, where did they go? Maybe some of them were in seclusion to comprehend the mysteries above the Divine Sea Realm. But it was also possible that they were chosen by Tianji of the 9 prefectures and sent here. Lu Yi suddenly understood. No wonder Jianghu and the others were so powerful. Just a few of them dared to kill hundreds of thousands of blood ray soldiers. It was because they weren't ordinary Divine Sea Realm cultivators. Each of them was a powerful cultivator who had suppressed the heroes of an era. Elegant, right? Only such people were qualified to be sent here by Tianji of the 9 prefectures. Although Lu Yi didn't know what kind of price one had to pay to send someone here from the 9 prefectures, it was definitely not small. Therefore, not just anyone could be sent here. No one knew about this. Everyone thought they were already dead. Looking at the person who called himself Feng Wujiang, Lu Yi finally understood why he felt a sense of familiarity when he first saw him. It was because of Maid Fengyu. Maid Fengyu was his daughter. Naturally, she had some of his shadow. Just as he was lost in thought, Yu Ji suddenly pointed to the side. Look over there. Lu Yi turned his head and saw a white-haired old woman. She was hunched over and supported herself with a walking stick. Her body was trembling as if she could fall at any moment. Don't be fooled by her appearance. That's Granny Jiao, the second Valley Master of Medicine King Valley. She's the oldest among us. She's lived for more than 1,000 years. Don't offend her. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Even I grew up listening to her name. Chapter 1031. Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He didn't know if Yu Ji was telling the truth or not. Because from the outside, Granny Jiao looked like an ordinary old woman with one foot in the grave. She didn't have any aura to speak of. Granny Jiao suddenly turned her head and looked over, a kind smile on her wrinkled face. It's not good to speak ill of others behind their backs. Little you need to change your personality. Yu curtsied. Granny is right. I will definitely change. Granny Jiao nodded slightly and walked away shakily. Lu Yi suddenly felt that this jade blood holy land was full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. You just became my master. Feng Wuxiang had Lu Yi. Lu Yi came back to his senses and bowed. Sect master didn't abandon me. I was accepted into our sect several years ago. Lu Yi greets eldest senior brother. He could more or less confirm that this person in front of him was his legendary elder senior apprentice brother. Lu Yi didn't think that these people around him needed to deceive him. These people were all peak divine sea characters. If they were placed in the 9 provinces, they would be powerhouses that could shake an entire continent with a stomp of their feet. In this foreign land, what benefit would there be in deceiving him? But Lu Yi didn't expect that his eldest senior brother, who was rumored to have died almost 40 years ago, was still alive. Moreover, he was sent to this blood-refining world by heaven's secrets. This was a bit strange. Feng Wujiang nodded in satisfaction. This old man's vision has always been good. Now it seems that junior brother will become a great person. Lu Yi blushed with shame. Compared to senior brother and the other seniors, I am nothing. Jian Guhong smiled. You are still young. Don't belittle yourself. Which one of those chosen by heaven's secrets to be sent here are mediocre? In the future, you might be able to be like your eldest senior brother and surpass him. He turned to Feng Wujiang. Holy Master, congratulations on your reunion. However, this isn't the place to talk. Feng Wujiang slapped his forehead. I'm so happy that I'm about to faint. Come with me, junior brother. Saying so, he affectionately grabbed Lu Ye's arm, rose into the air, and flew towards the peak. The others, however, didn't move. After Feng Wujiang and Lu Yi left, Yu Ji said in confusion, they can't be reinforcements sent from our homeland, right? They're all in Photoshop, what can they do? You can't judge a book by its cover, and the sea can't be measured with a pint pot. Since Tianji has sent him here, there must be a reason for Tianji to do so. Tianji is unpredictable, Tianji is unpredictable. Let's wait and see. At the peak of the mountain, Feng Wujiang brought Lu Yi to a pavilion. He had Lu Yi take a seat while he sat across from Lu Yi. It could be seen that eldest senior brother was very happy. The smile on his face never disappeared. I know junior brother has many questions, but I also have many questions. Can I ask first? Feng Wujiang stared at Lu Yi. Lu Yi nodded. Sure, Maojia 5. How has our sect been in recent years? Not very good. Lu Yi shook his head slowly and gave a brief account of what he knew. The smile on Feng Wujiang's face slowly disappeared and was replaced by seriousness and self-blame. When he heard that their sect was almost erased by Tianji, his self-blame grew even stronger. Back then, our sect's disciples were oppressed. Sect master was disheartened. In order to protect the remaining disciples, he dismissed almost all the disciples who were still alive. Before I entered the sect only had the sect master and senior apprentice sister Shui Yuan. Third apprentice brother Xiao Xinghe was sent to White Emperor City while fourth apprentice brother Li Baxian was sent to Pill Heart sect. However, both of their cultivations have reached the true lake stage and are now working in the law division of the military continent guards. After a pause, Lu Yi said, although he didn't mention you in front of me, I know that sect master really cares about you. Since eldest senior brother isn't dead, why didn't you greet sect master before coming here and let him and senior sister Shui Yuan know that you're still alive? Feng Wujiang smiled bitterly. I didn't have the chance. Under normal circumstances, I would have been a dead man. But at the last moment, I was replaced by the heavenly secret pavilion and was lucky enough to keep my life. After that, I was directly sent here. Where would I have the time to say hello to this old man? Lu Yi understood. For example, when he came to the blood-refining realm this time, he thought that he was going to escape from the nameless secret realm. Who knew that he would be directly sent here? Tianji wouldn't discuss anything with you. How is the situation in the 9 continents now? Feng Wujiang calmed himself down and asked. It is still the same. The two factions are at odds with each other and the 9 continents are at war. In the past few decades, there hasn't been anyone like eldest senior brother who can single-handedly change the situation. Actually, I took the wrong path back then. Feng Wujiang sneered. The two camps have been at odds with each other for so many years, and they've long been like fire and water. It's impossible to rely on brute force to subdue one of them. The more you suppress them, the fiercer the rebound will be. I'm a good example, junior brother, you should learn from it. Back then, when Feng Wujiang was in charge, the situation was good for the Haotian alliance. But just as Feng Wujiang said, the stronger the suppression, the fiercer the counterattack. In the last battle, the demons of the Wanmo Ridge fought back desperately. Countless warriors of the Spirit Sea realm surrounded him fearlessly. Even someone as strong as him was drowned by the demons of the Wanmo Ridge. Feng Wujiang wanted him to take this as a warning, but Lu Yi didn't know how to respond. After all, he was only a true Lake Realm cultivator. In the 9 continents, he was just a member of the masses. He didn't even have much say in the war province, let alone the entire 9 continents. Let's not talk about this. Tell me about the sect. Feng Wujiang sat cross-legged on a chair without a care for his image. He faced Lu Yi with an excited look. He had been here for almost 40 years and knew nothing about the 9 continents. He was even more worried about the sect. Now that Lu Yi was here, he naturally wanted to ask about it. What does eldest senior brother want to know? I want to know everything. Feng Wujiang chuckled. Let's start with you. How did you enter the sect? Was it because the old man's eyes were as bright as torches that he saw your extraordinary talent at a glance and wanted to recruit you? Lu Yi blushed with shame and told him the cause and effect of his joining the Jade Blood sect. Feng Wujiang listened with great interest and exclaimed from time to time. He never thought that his junior brother's experience would be so complicated. He wasn't the old man he imagined at all. The drama of seeing Lu Ye's extraordinary talent at a glance was caused by various coincidences. Speaking of which, when the sect master recruited Lu Yi, later, he had the idea of letting Lu Yi to cultivate in the sect 6 times over a period of time and didn't really fight. He wanted Lu Yi to stay. After all, at that time, the Jade Blood sect was in decline, and the sect master and senior sister Shui Yuan no longer had the intention to maintain the Jade Blood sect. When he heard Lu Yi talk about the Battle of the Golden Light Summit, he mentioned how senior sister Wei Yang brazenly rushed over and saved him from the fire and water. Li Baxian's sword came from the west, and the senior brothers and sisters worked together to protect their new junior brother. Feng Wujiang didn't have the demeanor of a divine ocean realm cultivator at all. It was as if he was in the middle of it all, and he wanted nothing more than to kill all the cultivators of the Myriad Demon Ridge who made things difficult for Lu Yi. After the Battle of the Golden Light Summit, Lu Yi could be considered to have truly joined the Jade Blood sect and returned to the sect to heal. After that, he cultivated on the Spirit Stream battlefield while developing the sect, and finally saved the Jade Blood sect. Although the Jade Blood sect's grade wasn't high, its prospects were very good. With the sect master and Shui Yuan, 2 divine ocean realm cultivators, and Lu Yi himself had hope of reaching the divine ocean realm, there were many more Cloud River realm cultivators in the sect. In the next sect grade assessment, it wouldn't be a problem to get a 3rd-rank sect. Wait, junior brother, how many years have you cultivated since you embarked on the path of cultivation? Feng Wujiang keenly noticed something unusual. Almost 5 years, Lu Yi replied. In these 5 years, he had spent most of his time in the Spirit Stream tier. In the entire Spirit Stream tier, Lu Yi had spent almost 2 years, while in the Cloud River tier, he had only spent 1 year. That was because the Spirit Stream tier was the first tier of cultivation for cultivators, and it was also a tier where they laid down their foundations. Each and every spiritual aperture had to be slowly opened, so there were no shortcuts to speak of. After reaching the Cloud River realm, because of things like spirit sticks, Lu Ye's cultivation speed suddenly increased a lot. In just over a year, Lu Yi had reached the true lake realm. Now, it had been more than a year and a half since he reached the true lake realm. The main reason was that after entering the blood refining world, his cultivation progress slowed down. If he had still been in the 9 provinces during this time, it was very likely that he would have reached the divine ocean realm. Feng Wujiang couldn't help but reveal a look of shock. In just 5 years, junior brother has reached the true lake realm 8th order? What kind of cultivation speed was this? Even if Feng Wujiang himself was someone who had obtained the heavenly secrets, he was still deeply shocked. Thinking back, how long did it take him to cultivate from nothing to the true lake realm 8th order? It seemed to be almost 20 years. Of course, he belonged to the category of late bloomers. At the beginning of his cultivation, he didn't show any outstanding aspects. At this speed, it was only a matter of time before his junior brother reached the divine ocean realm. No wonder he was chosen by the heavenly secrets to be sent here. But cultivation speed was still cultivation speed. Lu Ye's cultivation wasn't high after all. In the upcoming battle against the blood race to besiege the Blue Blood Holy Land, his personal cultivation probably wouldn't play much of a role. Next, Lu Yi talked about Shui Yuan reaching the divine ocean realm and how the sect master was often bullied by Madame Yun. Hearing this, Feng Wujiang was overjoyed and laughed heartily. Lu Yi didn't have a complete train of thought. He just said whatever came to his mind. But no matter how small the matter was, as long as it was related to the sect, his eldest senior brother would listen with great interest. After learning that the sect master had now arrived in Grand Sky City and was a member of the elder group, Feng Wujiang sighed deeply. Junior brother, it's been hard on you these past few years. The sect master was disheartened because of him, but also cheered up because of Lu Ye's rise. No matter what, he had to thank Lu Yi properly. Speaking of this, Lu Yi was a little worried. The sect master is probably very worried about my safety now. He was captured by Yu Daiwei in front of everyone in Team D9. Later, the sect master came to rescue him, but Yu Daiwei used the transmission array to escape the sect master's pursuit. Now, almost a year had passed and there was still no news of him. The sect master must be very anxious. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.